of the contract. That is your submission, Attorney General. I wanted to find out on this particular issue. In essence, you are confirming that there was no contract terms disregarded. There was nothing irregular about this particular payment. I just wanted to understand the meaning of this last sentence. Chair, I'm grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Kafwa.
Honorable Chair, thank you so much for this opportunity. And I would like to appreciate State Counsel Molilo Kabesha for that submission to the Honorable Committee. I have one question, but I just want to first for the SG to just clarify some misunderstanding I may hold. Somewhere I heard that the Attorney General gives an opinion on contracts. But today the AG has said he approves or disapproves contracts. I just want to work out here clear in terms of whether the AG approves contracts or he gives his opinion on contracts. My question is based on where he says he has strongly recommended that every government contract must have a contract manager. I think that theoretically that is very attractive. But I look at 156 constituencies and those councils, all of them actively, drawing contracts for, mini water rectification plants, for small structures and so on and so forth. So in Lunte alone, you might find that in one fiscal year, you have 6 contracts. Then if you come from Northern Province, you are looking at Imporokoso, you are looking at Rubansenshi, Lupososhi, you look at Kaputa, Chimbamilonga, Lukasha, Malole, Mpulungu, Mbala, Senga Hill, all those small contracts. How many are there? But go to Southern Province, Northwestern, everywhere, and consolidate these contracts. And then government must appoint contract managers for each one of those contracts, like the KK carriageway. Is this really practical, or it just sounds theoretically right, and therefore a recommendation must be strong? Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mawumba. Then AG will answer.
Thank you, Chair. AG, on page 3 of your submission, you have quoted provision of the 2008 Act and the 2020 Public Procurement Act. And obviously the issue here you have alluded to is ensuring that funds are available before any procurement is done. And I think you are the custodian of government laws, because you are the chief advisor to the government. So when a ministry brings you a contract for your approval or for your opinion, do you make sure that this relevant provision in the legislation by the procurement entity is adhered to, or at that stage your assumption is that no, the Ministry of Finance, since it has come here, they have got monies available? Thank you, Chair, for now.
Thank you. AG, you've got those 3 to 4 questions. You can proceed and answer the questions, and honorable colleagues will follow with another set of questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. To start with the question from Honorable Kangombe, whether the Attorney General is involved from the beginning or at the end. The procurement process, the Attorney General is only involved. He's the last person in the procurement process. The procurement entity in a ministry or government institution starts the process. And in their process, they go to the Zambia Public Procurement Agency to find out how the process should be, whether the process they are using is correct. And when ZPPA guides, then they start the process of bidding, advertising, and then when they have finished the process, they go to the Treasury. In the few years back, the Secretary to the Treasury must confirm that the funds are available. And the last person is the Attorney General. The Attorney General, in looking at that contract or agreement, must have evidence from the Secretary to the Treasury those days that funds are available. And maybe that can also bring in issues which used to raise eyebrows as to how the Attorney General can approve a contract with such enormous interest rates. Now, the procurement agency has desired or has decided to procure an item, and the Treasury has said the funds are available. Should that really worry the lawyer, the Attorney General, whether the interest is high, whether they say 20% or whether they say 40% interest, but the money is available? Why should you default? The money is there for you to pay. Why should you default? So the Attorney General, with comfort, the money is available, now concentrates on the terms and conditions of this contract. Is it okay? Is it an illegal contract? Illegal contracts, there are principles we use whether this contract is illegal or not. Is it okay for the government? Or is it okay for the nation? It's okay. And then we interrogate a few items there. We don't worry about the funds. That's not our area. The Secretary to the Treasury, currently it's the accountant. It's the Director of Finance at Honorable Kafwaya's council, the Director of Finance at Lunte Municipal Council has said funds are available. So I don't worry. Proceed. This contract is okay. So that's the Attorney General is the last person, even to interrogate whether the contract will be done. It doesn't even know the contractor. It doesn't even know the competence of this contractor. That's not his duty. His duty is to make sure that the terms and conditions are okay. That's to answer Honorable Kangombe. Then coming to Honorable Kafwaya, do we approve or we just render an opinion? We give an opinion, and in that opinion, we are saying it's okay. You can proceed. We have looked at the terms and conditions. It's okay. It's fine. We are satisfied. We are satisfied that it meets the principles which we have put. Sometimes some contracts, they are not done properly. They are not structured properly. So we send even a template. We say, do it in this way, and you can proceed to execute the contract. The parties are at liberty to execute. So in a way, we give an opinion. We also say it's okay. When we say it's okay, it means we have approved, and people can proceed. Then you talked about there are so many institutions, or there are so many districts, and there are too many for us to look at these contracts to appoint a contract manager. Yes, it's It says there shall be. And for us, who are lawyers, when you stop, just last time after I gave that advice in the procurement of fertilizer, we had some government officials, sometimes it was the local government officer to be a procurement contract manager. And so it has worked so far. I think several contracts have got contract managers. It's a simple job. Even yourself, if you are building at your farm, you can put your cousin there as contract manager, just to remind the parties to up their game if they are behind schedule, and funds to be made available when it's due. So it's practical, we can do that. Honorable Mabumba, you were referring to... Sorry, I missed the page.
What I was referring to is at that stage of the signing, to a large extent you have attempted at the stage of signing the contract between the parties. Do you look at whether the monies as provided by law are made available, being the custodian of government laws? Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. You actually use the word, is it an assumption that funds are available? For sure. It's not even an assumption. We have, Honorable Mabumba, we have a letter attached from the Director of Finance, that time from the Secretary to the Treasury, that funds are available. So it's not an assumption. We have evidence from the Director of Finance at Lunte Municipal Council. So we are sure. It's not an assumption. We know funds are available. But because there is no contract manager, you find that maybe people have just delayed, or they have diverted the money for something else. Otherwise, when we approve, we are sure funds are available. Thank you.
Sorry?
Chair, my second question on the $33.75 million, which was made as an advance payment. I wanted Attorney General to confirm whether this confirms that there was no irregularity in making this payment.
Thank you.
The implication of this sentence. Thank you.
Thank you. AG, before we proceed, Honorable Nakoka, you can ask your questions, so that AG can take 2 questions.
Thank you, Chair. AG, I also didn't have an opportunity to introduce myself. My name is Muvita Anakoka, Member of Parliament for Luena Constituency. Chair, I just would like to find out from the AG, and I'm happy that Honorable Kafwaya covered one of the questions I was going to ask, but I would still make a little follow-up on that issue. We have had some of your clients, basically procuring entities, saying that the Attorney General approved, therefore there is nothing we could do. So they have given us a General takes responsibility for everything in that contract, which is why construct of this contract, is it to clear what then remains with the procuring entity. So we would like to know how we balance the blame or responsibility or accountability when something goes wrong. My other question, Chair, is the AG has said this issue of contract managers is something that his office has strongly recommended. But we've also seen contracts where the contractor in the contract reserves the right to hire and fire a contract manager, which means the procuring entity is still left to the whims of the contractor. And in some of the examples we have seen, this has led to the contractor doing as they wish and exposing the government to huge financial losses. There are examples we could cite, but I won't do that for now. So the question is, do we really have clarity in terms of what obligations is the procuring entity carrying, given that the contract is at some point signed off? I'll use the word signed off by the Attorney General. And what obligations or responsibility the Office of the Attorney General carries in relation to effective implementation of these contracts. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. AG, there are those two questions, one from Honorable Kangombe and one from Honorable Nakoka. You can proceed.
Thank you very much, Chair. For Honorable Kangombe, he specifically said the contract, the FTJ University contract, there was nothing wrong in payment. Yes, there was nothing wrong, because that's what the contract was demanding. The contract involved the government to pay 15% of that contract, and the 85% we are going to get some funding, a loan. Now, the government did its part. There was nothing wrong to do that, because that's what the contract demanded. And the other party did not meet its obligation. And that's how we find ourselves having terminated the contract, because the 85% was not coming. And so, from what we advised, there was nothing wrong, which the 3 million which was paid, because they couldn't proceed. The other amount was not coming. Thank you on that question. Then from Honorable Anakoka. Why not Ikoka? The procurement agencies or entities, when we allow them to proceed with the contract, the Attorney General is not involved in the procedures and processes, how the contract will be executed, how the parties will perform their duties. That's not our duty. That's why the contract manager comes into play. Ours is just to say, it's okay, proceed and follow what is in the contract. The supervision, the execution, what they are going to do, what time they will be waking up to start the work, and when do they have to be paid. The contract covers that, and we don't go to that area. In short, we are incompetent to start supervising and engineering like Honorable Kangombe's. He's the only one who can do the engineering part. I can't. And you can't blame me if Honorable Kangombe, who is an engineer, executes bad jobs. That's right. Or if it's medicines which are being bought, they are expired. You can't blame it on the Attorney General, because we don't supervise, we don't go to that extent. The contractor to fire the contract manager. Yeah, if the contractor has an obligation to do what the contract demands, the contractor has been paid. And if the contract manager appears not to do his job, the contractor has performed, all the phases have been done, and the contract manager is not telling the employer to pay or to make funds available. Why continue having that contract manager? So he has the right. He can fire or dismiss that person who is a contract manager. My assistant here would like to also make some submissions. Chair.
Okay, Honorable Nakoka, then Madam Moa, you come through. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, for your indulgence. Chair, on the issue of the contract manager, maybe let me just bring it a little bit closer to home. We have contracts where the government as a procuring entity appoints, or in fact is required to appoint the Ministry of Infrastructure and Urban Development as the contract manager, with the understanding that this is the government working together to ensure that there will be no payments on jobs not executed, and all the terms and conditions are complied with, like you indicated. That's the role of the contract manager. But then the construct of the contract itself still gives the power to the contractor, who is not a government entity, to actually remove a government ministry appointed as a contract manager and they decide to appoint an individual who therefore goes ahead to certify works that the ministry itself says this hasn't been done to 80%, the Minister of Infrastructure, that would be, which would be the contract manager. On that basis, the ministry as a contract manager is removed. So my question is, how is that provision allowed to sneak into the contract initially? Because obviously it disadvantages the government just by its construct at that stage. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I don't know if you want to comment or first.
My assistant to
comment first.
Comment first, and maybe she might marry even Honorable
Anakoka's question.
In Akoka.
Thank you. Assistant Director, you can proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honorable members. Honorable members, thank you for the questions. I just wanted to highlight Regulation 213 of the Public Procurement Regulations. I'll just read the first subsection. It says, a controlling officer or chief executive officer shall appoint a member of staff of the procuring entity as the contract manager for every contract awarded, except that where a contract is particularly large or complex, i.e. Lusakandola Road, the controlling officer or chief executive officer shall appoint a team of staff to manage the contract. So, Chair, the first thing that we need to be cognizant of is that this is a legal requirement. Every controlling officer in every ministry, every CEO in every statutory body, every person running a government entity must make sure that there is a contract manager. To deal with the question that was raised by honorable member here on, is it practical? It is very practical, because all you are doing is you are identifying somebody in your team to do this. So if it's at the local authority, it's CDF, we are building what we usually see, 1x3 classroom blocks, the usual. You identify someone at the local authority to manage or to be in charge of those contracts so that you check. The law goes on further. If you look at subsection 2, it goes on further to allow for the controlling officer, where you find that there is nobody in your team who has that skill. It goes on further to allow for you to engage an external consultant, as a contract manager, so that you make sure that the proper job is done. With regards to Ministry of Infrastructure being contract managers on construction contracts, that is what usually happens. If there is a provision that maybe may have been overlooked, which allows for the contractor to do that, that is unfortunate. But usually for the construction contracts, Ministry of Infrastructure is the contract manager. But the point I really want to hit home is that the controlling officers, the buck stops with them. Because as a controlling officer, I am the one who is responsible for making sure that this project is done, or this road is done, or this school is built. So I need to check with my team. You have a head procurement. Make sure that there's a contract manager in place, and you can even be doing updates to see how far the construction or the project is going. But the second you allow the whole process to go to sleep, that is where problems come in, and that is why the Attorney General will get a call. AG, the contract is expiring. We are trying to do an addendum to extend the contract. We see that for CDF contracts. We see that for contracts from ministries, because it shows that there is nobody managing the process. Because if there had been somebody managing the process, you wouldn't show up on a Friday at 16 hours to say, AG, the contract is expiring, we need to extend it. So, Chair, I thought I should emphasize on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Mabumba, then Honorable Kangombe. You can proceed.
Thank you, Chair. AG, I take you back to your submission also on page 5 and 6 in relation to the payment of advance for mobilization or whichever. AG, I think from, and I'm sure you must have read the Auditor General's report, is where institutions sometimes are failing even to recover the advance payment that have been made to them. We can cite examples from Zambia Railways, more than 10 years, company paid advance payment, they have not done anything. We've seen on the Ndola, on the Lusaka Ndola dual carriage advance payment were done, the contractor and the procurement entity are still disagreeing. What is it that government can do going forward? Because again, from what I have read, the advance payment is like optional. I don't know whether it is provided in the law or it's something that is optional, because I'm aware also, AG, that some countries have stopped paying advance payments because they came to the conclusion that it became a conduit of plundering government resources in those particular countries. What is it that we are doing in order to align this particular provision so that it is smoother for government either to recover this particular money if a particular contractor is underperforming? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Kangombe.
My last submission, Chair, on page 4 under 1.4, adherence with contractual terms. AG, the first sentence reads, it is a general principle of contract law that parties to a contract are bound by the terms of their contract. Meaning, once government commits itself to certain terms, it means that the government is bound through that agency, the procuring agency. AG, what are you doing as an office, a very critical office to our work, in terms of educating these procuring agencies? Because it is very clear that once government is committed through a contract, it is now the contract dictating how things move. It is not the emotions and whatever are detached. It's now a document before two parties. So what are you doing, especially that you've just responded to Honorable Anakoka's question about who is responsible for the rest of the issues? Because from what I've picked out, everyone says, no, it was signed off by Attorney General. So does it mean if it's signed off, it means that now the rest, everything is fine? Even if people do illegal things, it means it's fine. So I just wanted you to help us. What are you doing as an office, a very critical office, to educate? I don't know if it's to educate, I don't know if it's to make people understand the role of AG. Because if the role of AG is not understood, it simply means that even in future, or even in the recent past, we will have these cases now being reported later on that this was done in the name of Attorney General cleared the contract. So what are you doing as an office, just to make people understand these procuring agencies, not us the politicians, but these who actually do the contracts, that AG's role ends here and the role of you as a procuring agent starts here and it continues here? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Chonya.
Thank you so much. I would like to hear from the Attorney General's office how expeditious the process has become in terms of clearing these contracts, because I know that at some point it would take months and months to get a response, and that would be cited as one of the causes that there's delay in project execution. So what improvements have happened in that area, especially that I'm aware that at some point there was an effort to decentralize and establish offices of the Attorney General in the provincial centers. I thank you.
Thank you, AG. Of those three questions, you can proceed and make your submission. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I will start with Honorable Mabumba. Advance payment recovered. Is it law or option? The procurement law allows, yes, allows advance payment, and this advance payment by law, it says it should not be more than 25% of the contract sum. Some contractors or some suppliers will not ask even for the advance payment. Now, this advance payment also, the law indicates what is it for. You are advancing the contractor for mobilization. Some materials need to be bought. It's basically for that subject contract. If it's a school, this advance payment should be used to buy the materials for the school, should be used to bring those materials at the site. Some of the procurement goods or items have to be manufactured, and the manufacturer, maybe the supplier is not even the manufacturer, but the supplier has to pay something to the manufacturer abroad or somewhere else, and that's the use of that advance payment. Maybe I'll combine also with what was when the advance payment is given and the contract aborts, it doesn't succeed or it's terminated. The law, even in the contracts, there's a provision in most of the contracts that it must be recovered. And when you are recovering it, the contractor or the supplier will look at what expenses. They must justify the expenses which were incurred, and then they will pay you back less the expenses they made. Also, if it's the contractor or the supplier who has defaulted, that advance payment, there is what we call liquidated damages. Then the employer or the government will ask you for those liquidated damages, what the employer has suffered and must recover. So it's law, yes, it's law. The advance payment is given. Sometimes, okay, let me go to Honorable Kangombe. The contracts, yes, parties, competent parties, they have contracted, sober, they have the capacity to contract. The government or government institution has capacity to contract. So when they are signing those contracts, the law takes it that that's what they have agreed. And so they are bound by what they have agreed in that contract. They can't somersault. If they somersault, there are consequences for breaching the contract. So what are we doing to educate? Yes, we have indicated that the parties, the controlling officers who are found to be managing these contracts, they must be serious in the way they look at the terms and conditions, how they execute, how they go about the contracts. The law also provides, the procurement law. When we find that it was maybe negligence of the controlling officer, the law demands that we can, the institution or the government can surcharge that controlling officer, or can punish, can demote, can dismiss because of the activities. We have written letters. There are some places where we have seen that surely this was a fault of the controlling officer. Sometimes they can hold on. The money is made available. Even when we were approving the contract, the money was available. We had the evidence. But why did you delay to pay? So we have written letters to some of those institutions that the controlling officer, the person who did not release the money in time, now we are suffering penalties, we are suffering interest. That person should be surcharged. They must pay back that money. And again, we don't go to supervise whether that controlling officer has been dismissed, whether that controlling officer has been made to pay. If that controlling officer has since retired, whether we have deducted from his terminal benefits, we don't go to that extent, but we sometimes write those letters. Honorable Chonya, you have said you can't be saying you have heard. You must know that the Attorney General's chambers have decentralized. We have gone into all the provinces. All the provinces, they have Honorable Kafwaya there, you have at Kasama, we have an office. Honorable Kangombe, we have an office in Kitwe and in Dola. Honorable, we have in Mongo, we have an office there. In Southern, we have in Livingstone. In Chisali, we have. In Mansa, we have. In Eastern Province, we have. No, it's not a provincial center. In fact, Copper Belt is favored because we have in Kitwe and Ndola. Livingstone, we have. No. We decided to have it in Livingstone. Not necessarily the provincial headquarters. Yeah, so when we come, it might not be in Chinsali, but it can be in Mpika. Yes, but we are in Chinsali. So in all provincial centers, we have decentralized. We have our office there. We expedite these contracts when they come, but sometimes we find our clients might be complaining. They say we delay. We don't delay. Most of the ministers sometimes and members of parliament, they follow me, and I suspect today Honorable Kangombe might follow me to go with me to my office because there is a contract for maybe with yes. So when we go to the office, I ask my officers to bring the contract. Sometimes you find that when he's ringing the town clerk will be telling Honorable, oh no, it's still with the provincial administration. So sometimes people complain that we don't delay. We don't delay, and there are certain contracts like CDF. We have made it a policy that CDF contracts should be attended to expeditiously. We are going into the farming season, so contracts for fertilizer, agriculture inputs take precedent. Contracts to do with medicines in hospitals, they take precedent. Even if we are busy, we abandon what we are doing to make sure that they are done. So we are, sometimes they will tell you, yeah, the contract is with the AG. Sometimes it's not true. Sometimes, yes, we receive a contract dated 4th February 2024, but the contract is received by Attorney General's chambers on the 4th July 2024 with a stamp, very urgent. Well, I'll put it aside. What is urgent? You wrote it in February. You are bringing it in July. You want to pretend it's urgent. It's not urgent. just as my assistant has indicated, sometimes they come at 17, but we want an addendum. This contract is expiring today at midnight. But where have you been all these months? So we are efficient, and we can assure you that we do things expeditiously. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, AG. Before Honorable Nyambose comes in, and before, yes, AG.
Sorry, Chair, my assistant would want to respond. Just add a few things to buttress what I've said.
Please, you can proceed.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to give some comfort to the honorable members. I know we've had challenges with CDF. It was a lot of money, a decision was made, and we have to do all these projects at the same time. We would be lying if we said that it hasn't overwhelmed us, and we have been trying to do the best that we can. So one of the interventions that I think I want the honorable members to leave with as they leave this room, or as we leave, is that the Ministry of Justice has decided that it's about time that we went E. So currently, even though you have lawyers in the provinces, what happens is that there's only one signature. There's only one Attorney General. That's what the Constitution says. So even if the contract is being reviewed in Chipata or Livingston, at some point, that letter will need to be signed by the Attorney General. So if the Attorney General is at State House due 22 hours, what happens? So we partnered with Smart Zambia, and we have been working on a contract automation system. So we are hoping that by year end, you will be making your submissions electronically. The same way it's done at PACRA, the same way things are done at Ministry of Lands now. So we have come up with a contract review and submission system. It's already been developed. We will actually be going into the provinces to begin to train the people at the local authorities on how to use the system. So we are hoping that by the end of the year, even if AG is not in the office, he should be able to sign letters on a gadget so that work must move. So we are hoping that that deals with the delays that we're currently experiencing. I thought I should highlight that as one of the interventions that our office is making. Thank you.
Thank you. AG, I've heard the submission. Before my other colleagues comes in, I thought I would say one or two words. I think my issue, perhaps I don't know if we need to relook at the law, because first and foremost, we've got officers who do not take personal liability when they're acting on behalf of government. And I've heard your submission where you've said you do make recommendations, but you don't follow up. So I see that, yes, there's a gap. Secondly, there are officers who've made government lose colossal sums of money and are still in the system working due to their negligence in the way they've conducted themselves. Not only that, AG, I've worked in the government. I've never seen, I think, a probability of 10, maybe 1 out of 10, where government has charged liquidated damages. We've seen contracts come before our committees where the supplier has defaulted and yet comes back to charge government interest, and we've not charged liquidated damages. Is it the incompetence of some of the contract managers due to the fact that we have not stipulated the qualification of the contract manager and the prerequisite qualifications that they need to have for them to manage some of those contracts? Because we've seen controlling officers, and some of those officers who've come, they've been charged interest, and yet the contractor defaulted as well. We can't even net off to say you defaulted, we've defaulted, let's now net off, we are charging you this is what we are charging you, then now we can reconcile and say who pays who. So these are some of the defects, and I thought well, I would have a comment from you. How then do we need to mitigate that? Because there are essentially there are gaps between how the law is sitting and how people are carrying out some of these issues. I just thought to bring that to your attention and see how you can help us on that. The other issue also, you find officers are overwhelmed with being contract managers. For example, Ministry of Local Government, an officer is a contract manager for 5 contracts because usually, as it were, Ministry of Local Government's officials tend to be contract managers. So I just want your take on that. Then Honorable Nyambose, you can come through, and Honorable Anakoka, you can come through. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. AG, I came a bit late. My name is Mishek Mutetwa Nyambose, representing the people of Chasefu Constituency in Eastern Province. Chair, mine may be similar to what the Chair has indicated, especially on the interest. I don't know if it's an assumption, but lately I've been hearing some of the contracts where a contractor charges interest on advance payments. Now, when you look at this matter, you, in certain circumstances, you find that an advance payment is delayed purposely for the purpose of the contractor, the other side, to earn. There is collusion, in short. Now, when this matter comes to your desk, what is your opinion in such cases to help the person giving the contract save money? Because this is your advance and no execution of works have started. What is the legal opinion that you render, or what is the remedy that you think should be there to help the country come out of such suspected collusion? I submit.
Thank you, Honorable Anakoka. Honorable colleagues, let's summarize also our questions so that we can make progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Quite some interesting telepath there, because I think I'm just adding an extra leg to your question and Honorable Nyambose's question. Chair, on the issue of contracts being cleared by the Office of the Attorney General, we have seen some contracts, where the procurement entity gives you a contract as a committee because you actually don't believe what they are saying, what was possibly included as terms in that contract. But when you come and see the contract, you see that it was actually included in the contract. In certain instances and in relation to interest, you'd find the contract is structured in such general terms. For example, it just says interest shall be charged on all outstanding amounts. End of story. The interpretation of rate, what constitutes an outstanding amount, is left to when the invoice or the IPC is being issued. So my question is, given that it seems that sometimes the construct of these contracts takes advantage of the fact that your officers are also overwhelmed and they might not really look through these contracts on a page-by-page basis, paragraph by paragraph, and dotting, and crossing the T's. Is it your understanding at the moment, AG, that your officers, maybe if we went the route of
Honorable, summarize your question.
Yes. Maybe if we went the route of your officers in the regional centers being able to sign these contracts off, we could have a little bit more attention paid to these documents, other than currently the highly centralized approach that we have, despite you having physical individuals in these centers you have mentioned. And connected to that, Chair, on the issue that Ms. Moya talked about, the way forward uploading online, one would have actually thought we should be moving away from that. So instead of us attempting to find a quicker way of bringing more documents, we should minimize overloading the Office of the Attorney General with every little small contract, given that you have these skills at provincial level and the centers you have mentioned. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. AG, maybe you can tackle those three. Then Honorable Kafaya, you ask after the AG has answered. Okay. If it's a short one, you can proceed.
AG, earlier in your presentation, and I think that is what motivated my earlier question in respect of contract managers. I thought when you strongly recommended the presence of contract managers on every government contract, you could have been drawing from the fact that there is evidence that there are contracts without contract managers. But after your response, and I think your assistant's supplementary information, it became clear to me that in fact there are contract managers. So the issue has changed in my mind to delivery of contracts in spite of the presence of contract managers. In that case, how are you going to change your recommendation? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. You can proceed.
Thank you very much. Maybe let me start with Honorable Kafaya's, because it's as he called it, is a short arrangement. Will not change. We recommended that let there be contract managers, and contract managers, we are seeing them being there. So we are happy. But we still have some contracts which are not provided with, people are not appointed. We still have, we can see those challenges. I think it's a learning curve. People are learning, but where there are contract managers, I think we are okay. And so our recommendation will remain that contracts manager, that's a law. It shouldn't even be our recommendation. Those who do procurement, they must know that the law provides for contract managers. Even if we gave that directive, it's just a reminder that says this law, follow the law. And so we are happy with what is there. Chair, you were talking about liquidated damages. You have not seen that the government follows this, but I want to tell you that yes, in some incidences I've seen, we have followed our office, Attorney General's chambers, the litigation section. We have been collecting money from contractors who defaulted, and we have collected some money. At least we are doing things. Sometimes I call the institutions with the contractor. I tell them, can you assess what was lost? What did the contractor spend? And then we have agreed. The contractor is asking for 150 million, and when we have assessed what we have suffered as a government, and we have recovered. Sometimes we have come, the contractor is asking for 150 million. At the end, we find that he's only entitled to 11 million, and we have agreed. So we are making efforts to those issues. Honorable Nyambose, you came late. We had talked about interest, but what we have done ourselves, for now, we don't allow any contract which will stipulate that interest shall be charged on advance payment. Yes, that is a topical issue. What had happened was interest, yes, was being charged because the government has delayed to pay the advance payment, and then interest will accrue. But our officers have been told the first thing you look for when you have a contract which you have to vet, interest clause. And so we don't allow any more interest clause. And also the general principles of law of contract. is that if you delay to pay, interest will accrue. It's normal. Even if you are going to to get a loan from the bank, if you delay to pay, interest will accrue. It's a general principle. You can't avoid. Why should you delay to pay anyway? You have indicated the money is available. The contractor has moved on site and the contractor has finished. Can you pay? And you are saying, I don't have the money. Now, I want to emphasize this interest we talk about. If you are procuring fuel, surely common sense should tell us that there is no fuel supplier who get money from his pocket or from that institution's bank account to go and procure fuel from Saudi Arabia and deliver to Zambia, fuel worth 120 million US dollars. They go to the banks. Surely, this is the common sense we should embrace as Zambians. They go to the banks and they have put collateral there, maybe their ship, maybe their headquarters of a building which is worth 2 billion US dollars. And you come, you get the fuel in Zambia and you are not paying for it. And they are asking for interest. You want to say you can't pay interest. Haiko man. Let us have this common sense that a person who borrows to supply you with these goods, they need also to be cushioned somehow. So interest, with Honorable Nyambose, we look out for interest. What we look out for is interest should not be charged on advance payment. Interest should not be compound interest. Compound interest is interest upon interest. And also, honorable members of the committee, most of these contracts, they don't just say in default of not paying or when you haven't paid, interest accrues. No, there is always a period. After 120 days, after 3 months, you have not paid, then the interest will start accruing. So as we mentioned, the contract manager should be able to make sure that the parties follow what is in the contract. Honorable Ikoka, Anakoka, you must print it properly. He was also talking about interest, and it's the same. Yeah, it's covered. Honorable Kafwaya, contracts. I answered it before when I just started. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, AG, for your submission.
She wants to say something.
Yes, you can proceed. Let's hear what you need to say.
Yes, there's a certain part of his question which he asked about, aren't you taking more documents to the... Yes. So it needs to be remembered that the approval of all government contracts and agreements is embedded in the Constitution. So the reason why the Attorney General has to approve or has to give an opinion on every agreement where the government has an interest is because it's in the Constitution. So the streamlining that we're trying to do is such that, so also we've been working with ZPPA to standardize the contracts, to make sure that the solicitation documents that will be used by the clients or by the ministries, they're standard. So that even by the time they come to us, we're not changing anything and we're not recommending anything. So when that is done, it will be very easy to get that approval from AG. So we're not taking more work to the AG as was proposed. Thank you, Chair.
And also, Chair, just to make life easy for institutions or our clients, we have changed the law on procurement that contracts, construction contracts, which are less than 1 million,
yes,
they shouldn't come to my office. If you are building a 1x2 classroom block with 750, you don't have to come to Attorney General. If it's to do with services, accountancy, or maybe just consultants on something, if it's less than 600,000, you don't have to come to the Attorney General. So we are making life easier for our clients.
Thank you. Thank you, AG. Unless honorable colleagues have any points of clarification, but I think we've it's very clear what the AG has explained, and his role vis-a-vis issues of contracts by the government, and also other salient issues which I think he has explained to that effect. So AG, let me take this opportunity to thank you most sincerely for coming to appear before this honorable committee, because the committee wanted to have your input and also just understand some of the processes as it were, which are done through your office, and we're grateful also for coming through this morning. With that said, AG, let me take this opportunity to lift immunity conferred before you that you are free. But when you go outside, you're on your own. Thank you so much. As you discuss with people you're going with. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, AG. Thank you.
On the Vice President's question time.
Questions for oral answer under Standing Order number 76.
A matter to be admitted, it has to be of recent occurrence.
Continue watching Parliament TV, a channel dedicated to bring Parliament closer to you.
My eParliament mobile application. First, download the app on either Play Store or App Store and install. After installation, open the app. Step 1. Register your personal information, that's your names, gender, NRC and date of birth. Step 2. Add your contact information, your email, phone number and home address. Step 3. Select your constituency. Step 4. Create your 4-digit PIN. At this point, the system will send an SMS to your mobile number with a one-time passcode. Step 5. Confirm with one-time passcode that was sent to your mobile. Step 6. Sign in using your phone number and the 4-digit PIN. And Step 7. Create your submission and submit. My eParliament, bringing Parliament closer to you.
My name is Honorable Dr. Christopher Kalila, MP, Member of Parliament for Lukulu East, Parliamentary Constituency. Lukulu East is in Western Province, approximately 700 to 750 kilometers westwards, and after Kaoma you go northwestwards. So Lukulu is one constituency and one district. According to the 2022 census of population, it's currently housing more than 96,000 inhabitants in terms of the population, and I must say that it's sparsely populated with roughly about 14 persons per square kilometer. So that's basically about the constituency. Most of the people suffer from chronic poverty, with poverty estimated somewhere around 85% of most of the people live below the poverty datum line. And also, according to the sub-national analysis report of 2019 from the Ministry of National Planning at the time, it is reported that extreme poverty stands at around 70%. So you can see that the main challenge obviously is chronic poverty in that constituency, being a typical rural constituency. So as a Member of Parliament there, I got elected in 2011 on the MMD ticket at the time, but I was not the first time to the National Assembly, having been there earlier as a nominated Member of Parliament from 2008 to 2011, and then in 2011 I contested a seat, and I've been in the National Assembly since then. So in short, I've been elected 3 times by the people of Lukulu, and then I've also been a nominated member once. So if you like, in the National Assembly, this is my 4th term, but in the constituency, it is my 3rd term. So I must say that I've been around for a while, and I wish to pay glowing tribute and gratitude to the people of Lukulu, who have always found me very useful to answer to the development challenges, to represent them here, to be able to participate in national political affairs at their behest. So I say thank you very much to them. Of course, in 2016 I made a switch from the Movement for Multi-Party Democracy and joined the United Party for National Development. So I've been a Member of Parliament of the UPND a second time. I'm a family man, happily married to one wife, Nora, and we have 3 lovely children, 1 son and 2 daughters. Our youngest daughter is 17. She's just matriculated from Kapiri Technical Girls School with flying colors in all her 8 subjects. So basically, that is from my side as a family man. In terms of my professional and education background, I'm a medical doctor by profession, fully registered with the Medical Health and Professions Council, having graduated from the University of Zambia Medical School somewhere around 1993, did internship at the University Teaching Hospital, and left to join the private sector initially with Zambia State Insurance Corporation, who were running medical services at the time, and after that I went into private practice as a general practitioner on the Copper Belt until 2008, when I was called to National Affairs by the late President Rupia Banda as a nominated member of Parliament, and subsequently appointed as a Deputy Minister. I held 3 portfolios in that government, having Deputy Minister of Youth and Sports, and after a year I was transferred to the Ministry of Works and Supply, again for another year, and subsequently to the Ministry of Health, where I was Deputy Minister to Honorable Kapemba Simbao until the elections of 2011. So basically, that is to sum up exactly my political journey as well as my family life and professional background. From the time that I took over as a Member of Parliament in Lukulu East, I think many people attest to the fact that we have made tremendous improvements to the living conditions of our people, especially in the education sector and also especially in the health sector. When I took over the constituency, I think we only had probably 3 or 4 secondary schools. Today we are sitting with 20 secondary schools, and we are only second to Mongu, which is, as you know, is the provincial capital, and very soon we intend to surpass Mongu because of the fact that we now have Constituency Development Fund. When I took over, I think we had probably not more than 8 health facilities, but today we have 25. 1 modern district hospital, we also have 1 mini hospital and 23 health centers. So I believe that the people of Lukulu, working through me, have made tremendous strides in the health sector, and they have also made tremendous strides in the education sector. Apart from that, when I took over, the entire district was not connected to the national electricity grid. But today, as I speak, the district is connected to the national electricity grid, and this has made life easier, particularly for our public institutions like our hospitals. Currently, we still have challenges in the water sector. The access to clean and safe drinking water is still very much a challenge. We have the biggest challenge, which is very well known even in this house, and also for those that are interested in the political affairs and development affairs of Lukulu. The biggest challenge is the Katunda Watopa Mumbeji Road. This is the main trunk road that cuts through 3 to 4 constituency. The bulk of it is in my constituency, Lukulu. I think if you were to ask anybody in Lukulu currently that what are the 2 most challenges that the people would like to be addressed, top on the list will be the road, this very Katunda Lukulu Watopa Road. Secondly is access to clean and safe drinking water. So, with the arrival of the Constituency Development Fund, we believe that the sky is the limit for us. We have used the entire 2022 mostly on building classroom blocks all over the constituency, mostly on building health facilities, mostly on sinking boreholes. We have also empowered communities with loans, we have empowered communities with grants, and we have actually exhausted the entire 2022 Constituency Development Fund. We have just finished expending the 2023 Constituency Development Fund, where we have given out all the loans, given out all the grants. We are just about to advertise finally for more classroom blocks, bridges, one mini hospital, and several other classroom blocks and health posts. So as I said, that although our journey, our march towards improving the socio-economic lives of our people started way back when I took over in 2008, the CDF has come to us like manna from heaven. We believe that we are now going to start sprinting. So in terms of water, we believe that being one of the biggest challenges, this is where we come in ourselves. So we have procured, or rather we are in the process of procuring a water drilling rig so that we are able to do it ourselves. So once the procurement, my people, that challenges of water will be a thing of the past, because we'll be able to provide safe and clean water ourselves. If not on a village-to-village basis, we'll be able to do water reticulation in the entire district. Thereafter, we'll be able to hire out this machine to the surrounding constituencies and raise the extra revenue for the council. In terms of the road, obviously, it's a national development challenge. We are in discussion and dialogue with our colleagues in the executive. That is the minister responsible for finance and national planning, the minister responsible for infrastructure, and we have been assured that steps are being taken to ensure that before the end of 2026 that this road is attended to or upgraded to bituminous standard as is commonly referred to. So we think that we are on course, and I think out of the 19 constituencies in Western Province, a fact which many people may not know, we are actually in the top 10. People may not know that, but this is backed by facts which are available at the Ministry of Finance and National Planning through that report that I fairly referred to. That report lists all the constituencies from the best constituency up to the worst constituency. In that report, you will find that we are, in terms of the province, we are in the top 10. In the country, we are somewhere around number 66, if I'm not mistaken. So you can see that we've been working very quietly, because we believe that making noise is not necessarily delivering. My word to our people is that let's continue to work together as you have done. Let's continue to put our heads and our minds together, particularly to my colleagues in the Lukulu Town Council, the CDF committee, to all the youths, to all the women, to all the headmen, that let's continue as before, and as I have never let them down, I'll still not let them down.
Keep watching Parliament Television, a station that brings Parliament closer to you.
There were 59,439 registered cashew nut farmers in Western Province.
The situation as it is, I'm incapacitated.
The good people of Petauke, especially Minika 1, where we don't have water.
This is now a serious risk on the people with Estezi. Last week we registered one maternal death.
Within the CDF, we can build palaces for all chiefs in our country.
Minister, when are we going to have money? When are we going to construct those?
Catch us live on DSTV channel 272, OTV channel 28, Topstar channel 5, or visit the National Assembly of Zambia Facebook page. Parliament Television, bringing Parliament closer to you.
On the vice question time.
Answer, understand.
For a matter to be admitted, it has to be of recent occurrence.
Continue watching Parliament TV, a channel dedicated to bring Parliament closer to you.
My name is Engineer Jonathan Daka. I'm 46 years old, of course married with the 4 beautiful children, or boys. I went to Chipata for my entire primary school, even secondary school. Thereafter I went to the University of Zambia in 1995, where I graduated with a Bachelor's of Engineering in Civil Engineering in 2002, after staying there for an extended time of 7 years. That's my basic qualification. I'm an engineer by profession. My constituency is located on the southeast part of Zambia, bordering with Mozambique. This constituency is a rural constituency with the 20 wards, and this constituency being a border constituency, you know, this is a constituency which actually houses the Chanida border, which is the shortest border to the sea coast for the country. Therefore, much of the, and it's proud of its imports of fuel, because about 70% of the fuel that we use as a country actually passes through this very important border. And this constituency, as I've already said, is a rural constituency whose major economic activities is farming, just like most rural constituencies. But for Chadiza, is a food basket for Eastern Province. It's proud of a lot of crops that our farmers grow in Chadiza, ranging from maize, groundnuts, and even cash crops like cotton and tobacco. Just like any other rural constituency, Chadiza faces a lot of challenges. This constituency is one of the most backwards constituency, as it lacks most of the basic infrastructure. Chadiza basically is one of the poorest constituencies. So all the basic structure, the basic infrastructure is lacking in Chadiza, and even poverty levels are very high. My developmental agenda, as I've already said, is to transform this constituency. I've told you it's lacking in most of the basic infrastructure, but first of all, therefore, should be to open up this constituency on the issues to do with the internal roads, these small roads first of all, and then also open it up to the other parts of the country. I mean, we need to connect Chadiza to the rest of the country through a bituminous standard road, because Chadiza is one of the few constituencies or districts which has never actually been connected to the rest of the country through a third road. Therefore, one of my first agenda is to ensure that we connect Chadiza to the rest of the country through a bituminous standard road, besides those of the internal roads. It's my belief that after doing that, actually will trigger the other economic activities which are lacking in the district. So my agenda will start with the roads, and then we deal with these other, because almost all these other need areas are lacking. In education, we are backwards. Water and sanitation, we are backwards. Issues to do with dealing with poverty is backwards, and you know, we have kids and women being the most affected in this constituency. My word to the people of Chadiza is that of unity. I've already said this constituency is a very vast constituency with 20 wards. Therefore, we should unite. The constituency is like that, because I believe that there's never been unity in the constituency. There's too much pulling apart, you know, pulling down, pulling apart. So my word to my electorate is that let's unite in the interest of developing our constituency. Because if you are divided, actually we are not going to achieve anything. So let's unite, be it women, youths, chiefs, and everyone. Let's unite for a common cause, which is in the name of bringing development to our constituency. That's the word. They should believe in their leader, and they should give him all the support. The problem which is there, looking at what is happening, is that it cannot be a problem to do with leadership now. I believe that the right leadership now has been given to the people of Chadiza. All they need to do now is to lag behind their leader, give him all the moral support so that he can bring the much needed development that people have always wanted to come to the constituency.
My name's Henry Skazwa, or Honorable Henry Skazwa. I'm a family man. I have 3 children, and my constituency is called Senga Hill. That is in the northern province. I was born in 1973 in Copperbelt in Kitwe. I hold a degree in administration. Also, I'm a evaluator. Before I joined politics, I was a businessman in real estate. I've been in business for the past 30 years until 2021 when I attempted to join politics. That was my first attempt. I never dreamed that one day I'll be an MP. In 2021, I applied under UPND in the Senga constituency, and I managed to, scope the seat. Talking about our district briefly, our constituency, Senga Hill, it's about 910 kilometers from the capital city of Lusaka, and it's in the middle of Mbala and Kasama. We are about 180,000 people in that constituency, and the constituency is very vast. Actually, we are even demanding for delimitation because, it's borders with Nakonde. Other side it's Mpulungu, then Lunte, Mpolokoso the other side, so it's in the middle. So it's a vast constituency, but our people are now enjoying the benefits of having a local MP like myself. We are #1 producer of beans in that area. We feed the whole nation and the rest of the other countries. And we are just encouraging our people that they can farm more, because now we are bringing the market closer to the people. What we have done in the next 1 year, 8 months, is to come up with an open market where people can bring their crops, maize, beans, and everything. Then we're able to sell it to the farmers, those who are coming from, especially Tanzania and Kenya. We are expecting our GDP in that area to grow, because, like, for the last season, we gave out fertilizer and inputs to most of the farmers, and this time around we're expecting to have very good harvest. You see, with the CDF, indeed it has changed our people's lives within the constituents, because we have managed, for example, we have managed to put up 10 boreholes within the 10 wards of Senga Hill constituents. Also, we have managed to construct 1x3 classrooms across the constituencies. This time around, we want to do the roads, just to have the access roads. And
ST and your team, we welcome you to this meeting. Some of the people who've escorted the ST can come and sit this side where there are mics, there are seats there. Especially those who've been appearing before this committee with PS budget, Madam and others, those seats I want them to be filled. Maybe you would need to make some submissions. Thank you, ST, you're welcome. Honorable colleagues, will proceed with the meeting. We'll call the meeting to order. Honorable members, from my right, you can proceed and introduce yourselves.
Thank you very much, Chair. ST, I am Imanga Mnyima Jr., Member of Parliament for Nalolo Constituency in Western Province, and a member of this select committee. You're welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, ST. My name is Sunday Chanda, Member of Parliament, Kanchibia Constituency, member of this committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, witness. My name is Munashavanti Melda, Member of Parliament for Mapatiza Constituency in the Zambia district of Sara Province.
Good morning, ST. My name is David Magumba, MP for Mons and a member of this select committee. Thank you.
Good morning, ST. Mishek Mtetwa Nyambose, representing the people of Chasefu constituency. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, ST, and good morning, PS. My name is Muvita Anakoka, Member of Parliament for Luena constituency.
Honorable Chair, dear colleagues, ST and your team, you are welcome. Engineer Christopher Kangumbe, representing the people of Kamfinsa and a member of this committee.
Honorable Chair, thank you so much for this opportunity. Mr. Nkulukusa and your team, good morning. My name is Mtotweka Fuaya, MP for Lunte constituency.
Thank you, AG.
Thank you so much, Chair. Morning, ST and your team. My name is Aaron Mwambwa, acting Auditor General.
Good morning, ST. I'm Kenny Chilao, Director Public Debt and Investment.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, ST. My name is Monunga. I'm a Principal Auditor under the Office of the Auditor General.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, ST. My name is Kainda Chivunda, Senior Auditor in the Office of the Auditor General. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Govinda Sinyani from the Planning and Research Department in the Office of the Auditor General.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honorable members. Morning, ST, and morning, PS. My name is Malak Luhanga, Assistant Director in the Investment and Debt Management Department, Ministry of Finance and National Planning. Thanks.
Thank you. Office of the Accountant General, not the Accountant General. If you are here, my name is Mlenga Chama from Office of Accountant General. But we've only seen you now when the ST has come. We're not here in the morning. The Office of the Controller, then followed by the clerks.
Morning, ST and your team. My name is Amasozi Longwe from the Office of the Controller of Internal Audits. Thank you.
Morning, ST. Thank you, Chair. My name is David Chuanda. I'm from the Office of the Clerk. Thank you.
Thank you, media. Thank you, ST. I'm Warren C. Mwambazi, Member of Parliament for Bwanamkuba constituency from Mundola. I'm the chairperson of this select committee which is looking at public debt. I will invite you to proceed and introduce your team. Thank you.
Thank you very much, honorable members. My name is Felix Nkuruksa. I'm Secretary to the Treasury. I'll ask my colleagues to introduce, starting on my left.
Good morning, honorable members of Parliament. My name is Insandi Manza, Accountant General.
Morning, Chair and honorable members of the committee. My name is Mwaka Mkwesa, Acting PS, Budget and Economic Affairs.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honorable members. My name is Masikala Mushinga, Acting Director for Investments and Debt Management, Ministry of Finance and National Planning.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honorable members. My name is Audrey Saidi Piri from the Investment and Debt Management Department in the Ministry of Finance and National Planning.
Thank you so much for the introductions. ST and your team, let me confide with immunity in accordance with Cap 12 of the laws of Zambia. The submission which you make before this honorable committee, you cannot be prosecuted in any courts of law unless you willingly mislead this committee. ST, I'll ask you to proceed and make your submission.
Thank you very much, Chair and honorable members. Probably just before I make the submission, I was seeking your indulgence just to get an update from the PS budget on the submission that had was requested. Thank you.
Thank you, ST. We just wanted to put on record that we have made additional submission of information related to 7.2.3 unauthorized payments and to 7.2.4 failure to provide loan details. We have submitted to Secretariat. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. I hope you have circulated what has been provided by the Ministry of Finance. Thank you. I hope, AG, you have these submissions. Okay. Thank you. ST, you can proceed.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. The presentation on the special audit report of the Auditor General on external public debt of the Republic of Zambia for the period 1st January 2006 to 31st December 2022. Chair, in terms of the executive summary, the Auditor General basically is reporting that the report has been produced in accordance with Article 250 of the Constitution of Zambia, the Public Finance Management Act, and the Public Debt Act. And Chair, we just want to note as Treasury that we concur and agree that the Auditor General's mandate to audit the public external debt of the Republic of Zambia is drawn from these various acts that have been mentioned, Chair. We also, Chair, want to appreciate the fact that the Auditor General availed the controlling officers and chief executive officers draft paragraphs for comments and confirmation of the correctness of the findings, and giving them an opportunity to interact with the Auditor General before the issuance of the final report, Chair. In terms of the specific recommendations, on section 8 on page 70, and I will go through recommendation by recommendation, Chair. The first recommendation was on adherence to the Public Debt Management Act, and that all borrowing should be made in line with the Public Debt Management Act number 15 of 2022 by ensuring that the proposed debt is included in the annual borrowing plan before it's contracted, Chair. I wish to submit, Chair, that this is indeed in line with the practice that all borrowing has to be included in the annual borrowing plan. And I could just give an example, Chair, of this year, when we got an augmentation from the International Monetary Fund that is going towards our drought challenges, that we had to come to Parliament to issue an amendment to the annual borrowing plan, so that we can include that additional borrowing before we can start the execution. So we make sure that we abide by the provisions of the law and present the annual borrowing plan. And if there is any variation or amendment to the plan, we come to do that before we can be able to start the implementation. The next, Chair, is project financing, that all borrowing in respect of the project financing must conform with the provisions of the Public Investment Management Guidelines of 2023 issued by the Ministry of Finance and National Planning. Chair, the committee may wish to note that the Public Debt Management Act 2022 requires that projects to be financed in line with the National Planning and Budgeting Act of 2020 need to be appraised. And after they are appraised, they are included in the budget. Obviously, Chair, we are going through a transition period. Our idea is that all projects that go into the budget should be appraised. But obviously, we could not put that immediately. We gave ourselves some transition period, and I've come with the lady that is actually helping us with that. And at an appropriate time, I would just tell her to speak to what we have seen, where we are coming from, we improving, and where we think we should be going. But our view is that as we go in the near years, we should have all projects that go in the budget appraised, Chair. The next recommendation is on recognition of debt, supply credit agreement loans, and that the Ministry of Finance and National Planning should tighten controls regarding contraction of loans through supplier credit agreements by ensuring that the loans are only recognized as debt upon successive delivery of goods and services. And again, Chair, I think this is something that we have already been engaging, and I think 2 months ago, I had a meeting with the Auditor General when we were looking at some of the contracts that were done in the Ministry of Education, and we found some of the loopholes that sometimes on instruction without evidence of the actual supply, that the records may be updated. And we have agreed on the processes that need to be followed for us as the Ministry of Finance to recognize such debt in our books and ensure that the supply of the goods and services is actually done, and there is authentication and there is a certification process that needs to be undertaken. The third one, Chair, is the contract management, that the Ministry of Finance and National Planning and implementing ministries and entities should ensure that where there is supply of goods and services or construction of infrastructure, debt is recognized upon issuance of a fully approved interim payment certificate and acceptance certificate. Again, Chair, in the same spirit that I discussed the previous one, that is how it is supposed to be done, and we'll make sure that we implement this in accordance to that. And what we are trying to do, Chair, is that it shouldn't be just when someone is in the office and they are aware of this, it is done, and when those people are not in the office, nothing is done. So we are trying to make sure that for every process that we do, that there are guidelines, that there are notes that each one can be able to follow and say it was done, and it will be very easy for the officers that who have overlooked this, because that says this is how it is supposed to be done, and no officer can therefore claim that was done. And this actually came to our in the meeting with the talking about improve the financial management system in the country, make sure that there is accounted for, and we reached that agreement, and we are very sure that as we are presenting the 2025 budget, that will have most of these guidelines issued and effective 2025, that we should be able to have this, and this should be public information that whoever is interested should be able to find this information and should be able to question what we are doing. And the last one in this table, Chair, is adherence to Public Procurement Act, and that contracts for the supply of goods and services which are financed through debt must be executed after securing of funds by signing the financing agreement in line with Section 56(2)(a) of the Public Procurement Act number 8 of 2020, Chair. And again, Chair, just to say that it's worth noting that it is a requirement by many of the creditors that the obligation for which the debt is created is firmed up with legal documents to make sure that there is a fallback position in every event that we may meet where the process is not incurred. And therefore, the committee will note that the Auditor General's recommendation will be considered to be an update to our debt management procedures to the extent possible. And as I had already indicated, Chair, that we are trying to make sure that we have got those updates. Chair, in terms of the management of the Eurobonds, Section 1, under Section 1, 2, there was the consideration of the poor management of the Eurobonds, Chair. And Chair, from the experience that we have, as you are aware, I used to be in the Ministry of Finance up to this time that we had the first Eurobond, and I was one of the architects in getting the first Eurobond. And we have seen the experience, and when I came out from the Ministry of Finance, I went into private practice, working with international organizations such as the World Bank, and looking at what the best practices are, and obviously coming back in the government. One thing that we can all agree is that probably we could have done better. And obviously, maybe we shouldn't blame ourselves completely. It was a learning curve, but at least we have learned, and I'm very sure that given another opportunity, we could do even better. These are commercial loans, and obviously for you to get such a loan, you must be able to say, are we going to have the return, to be able to pay for this loan, and to be able to get the investment that we want. Obviously, when we started with the Eurobond, the first Eurobond, we are looking at twofold. One is to try and make sure that we have got the benchmarking so that we can open up the opportunity for the private sector. But second, that we could have the resources, and we thought that we would be able to put the resources to good use, and the obvious experience has shown that probably we didn't do the best, and we hope that as we have access to the international market after the debt restructuring, that we can be able to have that. In terms of some of the projects that we thought we could have used with the Eurobond, some of the projects, Chair, for instance, we had put money in the DBZ to ensure that we use it as an apex lending institution, and we can then have the private sector that would be able to achieve that. As we speak now, Chair, obviously DBZ is history. It has been repossessed, and we're hoping that we will have a better bank that will be coming out of there, and that the bad assets will be able to absorb them as government. The other portfolio, Chair, that we had obviously talked about in the Eurobond was the need for us, and we thought one of the bigger challenges we have always had especially as a land-linked country, was the connectivity, transport and logistics. And this is one of the reasons that we then talked about putting some money in Zambia Railways. Again, Chair, we don't see any evidence or evidence enough that that money was put to good use. Again, if we are to be given another opportunity, I'm sure that we could do better than we did. The next point, Chair, that I wanted to raise is the point of obviously when we are borrowing, we need to make sure that we pay. And for us to make sure that we pay, we must start preparing to pay the debt that we borrow. And this is why we had talked about the sinking fund. Is it possible that as we borrow and we start investing, and the return that we are getting on the investment, that we could start keeping some of that money in the sinking fund, so that when the day of recording comes, we can be able then to get that money and use it. Obviously, there are different arguments about a sinking fund. One of the major arguments, and I did this argument when I was doing my postgraduate, was whether it would make sense at inflation of double digit, at an interest rate high, at an exchange rate high, whether it would make sense for you to get the money now, put into a sinking fund to be used next year, and what would be the value for money as at that time, or it would make sense for you to say, do we have a better investment, and you find that better investment that would give you that result. But obviously the Chair is a temporal situation. Our hope is that we will be able to have very strong macroeconomic fundamentals that will be able to contain inflation, that will be able to have a stable exchange rate, that will be able to have lower interest rate, and therefore that we have the framework under which we can be able to have the sinking fund. And this is the basis on which we created this sinking fund, Chair. And we, as at 31st December 2023, Chair, we have about $10.7 million dollars in the sinking fund, and that, Chair, will continue putting resources in the sinking fund. And we are hoping, and some of the modalities that we are looking at, for instance, when we do in the budget, and we'll be coming to Parliament to have further engagement, when we have the budget, Chair, for instance, we always make assumptions in the budget. One of the assumptions, for instance, we make is the cost, the price of copper. And we say this is the volume of copper that we are going to produce. With this volume of copper that we are going to produce at this price of the copper, therefore government will be able to make so much money in that. And if the price of copper increases beyond what we project, Chair, and government makes that additional money, probably this is where we could be saying that additional money, since it is outside the parameters that we gave ourselves for the budget, instead of consuming it, can we be able to take such money in the budget, or any other such type of arrangement, Chair, that we put in the budget? And that is the thinking that we are looking at, Chair. The next point, Chair, that I wanted to talk about is point 4, use of funds for budget support. And obviously, we, Chair, note the Auditor General's observation, and the committee may wish to note that the period under review, government experienced liquidity challenges, hence contracting the 3 Eurobonds, and that as such, some of the funds were apportioned to finance the deficit in the budget. And I think, Chair, I did discuss about some of the weaknesses that we saw and how best we can be able to improve if we are given another opportunity. And I'm very sure that very soon our country will open up to the international market, and that we should be able to once again start getting such resources. And I'm sure that we'll have a lot of lessons learned from there. In terms of SOE management, Chair, obviously we need an enhancement. And again, Chair, when initially we then talked about SOE management being in the Ministry of Finance and National Planning, and our colleagues in the investment and debt management were basically providing that. Looking at our ambition and what we are doing, we realized that probably that would not suffice and that we may not have the capacity, and this was the whole thinking of the IDC chair, to be able to provide for this management on behalf of the Minister of Finance, and that the Minister of Finance then would be able to provide the policy guidelines on how SOEs would be managed. Again, Chair, our experience have shown that there are some weaknesses and there are some lessons we can learn, and we are doing everything possible to ensure that we improve on this. It has delayed, but I'm very sure that there will be some improvement as we move forward, and we should start seeing some of the SOEs contributing to the government, which is the primary objective that inspired, in addition to providing strategic positions, that they should also be able to contribute. And Chair, when I was in the ministry before, we traveled to Chile, and we found out Codelco in Chile that they were providing, they were supporting the government to the full extent possible, and over and above all the taxes that were due to the government and the dividends that Codelco were declaring, Chair, they were even also obliged to pay 10% military tax, the money that basically was going to support the military. And we ask ourselves, if other SOEs can be able to perform like this, why not ours? And in Codelco, Chile, and I always give this example in my lectures, the board of Codelco were ministers, and they called for competitive selection of the chief executive, and they signed a contract with the chief executive. At the time that they were picking the chief executive told them what they are going to deliver. At the end of that contract, the board would sit with the chief executive. This is what you told us. Have you delivered or have you not? And it is a self-assessment sheet, and the chief executive, if they haven't delivered, there is no nepotism, there is no tribalism, there is no lobbying. You meet, you tick, you continue. If you fail to meet, that's the end of your job. And that's how Codelco has survived. And at that time, we are told, Chair, that Chileans were depending on Zambians for consultants to start their mines. In the 1970s, when Zambia was producing 720,000 metric tons, and Chile were producing less than 100,000 metric tons. As we talk now, Chile is producing more than 5 million tons. We are still at 750,000 tons. So some of this, Chair, is the management. Chair, let me end by basically just taking note and appreciating the work of the Auditor General, and that obviously we appreciate this work. And personally, Chair, we probably on a weekly basis, I have a call with the Auditor General. We have even gone where we identify some of the issues. We don't wait for the Auditor General to call and audit. I immediately ring the Auditor General. I have identified and I see that we may have challenge in this area. Is it possible that you can quickly move in and be able to see? And if the resources are a challenge, then we mobilize the resources immediately, so that some of these issues we can prevent them than wait until the damage is done, come and start blaming each other. Here, Chair, and thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, ST, for your submission. Honorable colleagues, I invite points of clarification from the Secretary to Treasury and his team. Honorable Mawumba, Honorable Kalila, Honorable Kafaya, you proceed as a first set of questions. You can proceed, Honorable Mawumba.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to ask the question. ST, and I like your last submission of the example Chair has given of Codelco. But But ST, why is it that in Zambia, because even when you look at the audit report, many of those problems which are rising in the audit report is a failure of accountability, where officers who commit these offenses, they don't do any needs assessment of what they want in their ministries, funds are given, are paid to the contractors, and those officers continue to be in those offices. And sometimes even when they take you to court because they are very clever enough, or maybe our laws are weak, they even win the cases. So based on the Codeco example you have given, and in your submission on page 1, where you are saying the Treasury will endeavor to ensure that all ministries, parastatal bodies adhere to the various legislation. Why is it that ST, these issues that you have mentioned here, we have talked about them year in, year out. Why is it that there seems not to be a change in the behavioral mindset of our civil servants to ensure that they adhere to the provisions of the law and obviously avoid all these unnecessary audit queries that we are having? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Kalila.
Thank you very much, Chair. I have two questions for the Auditor General. First, to thank him most sincerely.
Honorable can ask one, then I think
they are just interrelated. They are very small. No need to worry so much, Chair. First one is the fact that the Secretary to the Treasury has submitted before this committee, Chair, that he thinks that, first of all, he agrees with the findings of the Auditor General with regard to some of the debt that we contracted over the years, especially the Eurobonds, and that we could, the lesson here is that if given another opportunity, we can do better. I'm interested to know what those lessons are, which we have picked up from the administration of the previous debt, for which you believe that in future we could do better. In other words, what went wrong and how you believe that we could do better. Secondly, which is just a small, ST, you are one of the most, at least among the senior most public servants in this country, particularly in the financial sector, and one of the chief advisors to government on financial matters, and it's quite rightly so that you visited Chile and learned these beautiful lessons which you have shared with us. What have you done to transpose and infuse? What is the point of going on a study tour and learning something good and it's not transfused into our management and operation systems? Are we going just to continue admiring what others are doing without doing the same? So what are you doing, or what have you done to ensure that our mines and other state-owned enterprises begin to operate along the lines of the best practices, as you have said, from the Chile exam? Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Kafaya, can proceed.
Honorable Chair, I'm grateful for the opportunity, and ST, I wish to thank you sincerely for your submission. Let me start by appreciating your appreciation of the relationship you hold with the Office of the Auditor General, and draw from your oral submission, specifically where you indicate that we could do better. Some of these issues, particularly, I think you made reference to the Eurobond. We are drawing lessons. Do you think that the lessons we are drawing from these actions of the past are impacting current and future decisions? And I ask specifically in view of the PPP projects that we are now witnessing. Notable of them could be the Chingola-Chilabombe Road. You could also consider the Lusaka-Ndola dual carriageway. Have we projected this learning into this such that posterity will not come and learn, but will come and appreciate our decisions? And lastly, I think you talked about the Auditor General raising an issue of using part of the Eurobond for budget support. I don't know what is wrong with that. And I say so because your ministry is on the floor of the House. From 177 billion to around 200, where did I do my math? 218.9 billion. Part of that money will be borrowed for nothing but budget support. So what is wrong with supporting your budget with borrowing? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. ST, you can proceed. There is a question from Honorable Mabumba, Honorable Khalil, and Honorable Kafaya. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Let me be very sincere and candid here, that for as long as we all think someone else has to find the solution to the problem, and we don't want to be part of the solution, we will continue asking ourselves questions. The ST will do his work. The parliament committees should do their work. The president should do his work. The members of parliament should do their work. If we take responsibility as a team, we are going to resolve this. But if we wait and say, ST, what are you doing? Obviously, the ST won't do this on his own. What is still discouraging this behavioral change is that first and foremost, in every environment, we normally have what we call carrots and sticks. Someone should be able to know if I do something wrong, I'll be whipped. And someone should be able to know that if I do something right, I'll be promoted. Then there will be an incentive to do the right thing. I want to be very honest, that even at a time that I as ST was making a decision on the information that we got from the Zambia Revenue Authority, when I just became ST, I had more than 10 members of parliament coming to my office to visit me. Don't remove that officer. Don't remove that officer. That is the officer that we worked with. And I'm asking, but if the officer has done something wrong, what lessons are we teaching? Now, if I work alone, of course it means it will be very difficult. When there was an advert at the Zambia Revenue Authority for employment, I received, and I'm giving you this, I can give you this if I go to the bureaucrats, I'll give this in parliament. I received more than 10 MPs, each one saying, can my wife be employed or my son be employed? And I'm asking for a question. If it was like that at the time that I was getting a job, coming from Mungule, not knowing anyone, would I have gotten a job? Now the challenge we have is that if I employed that son because he's a Nkurukusa, it means even when he goes there, he won't do the right thing. Whoever touches me, do you know who I am? That won't work. So I ask that if we have collective responsibility, if there's an advert, let it run. Whoever gets that job is a Zambian. Let it run. Let a Zambian get the job. And if that Zambian gets a job, it may not be in Nkurukusa today, but if there is a Mwaka that gets it today, Mwaka has gotten today, tomorrow Nkurukusa will get that job. So it's the mindset. And we have seen that it still continues up to now. I can tell you that someone even brought a chicken at home. They told me, get me, my son needs a job. And I said, just tell your son to apply. I never talked to the owners, the people that were employing. That son applied and they sent the papers to me and I put them on the side. That son had the confidence, they went for interview, they got a job. And they called me, thank you very much for your support, our son has got a job. It's not true. But it's the mindset, because no one believed that that son cannot get a job. So in my view, let us work together. We can change this. Have we learned lessons? Can we change the behavior? I can say that we are seeing some changes. And we saw this, and I'm giving an example of Zambia Revenue Authority. When we saw this, and there were people that would even threaten, they will call the Commissioner General. Do you know who I am? No one can touch. And the Commissioner General will come and will tell the Commissioner General or the Minister, there is no one who is entitled to a job. If they are doing the right, they are not doing the right thing, out. Let's have the right job, so that everyone knows that we are doing the right job. We'll be able to change this. Even this behavior will change when everyone knows that I want to be protected if I have this. In terms of the lesson from the previous Eurobond, there are several lessons that we have learned. The bigger lesson is that we must have a plan. What do we want to do? How are we going to do it? When are we going to do it? At what cost? And we must have a framework to monitor that we have achieved that. Again, I will give an example of Malaysia. At the time that I went for benchmarking in Malaysia, way back in 2013, I think thereabout. And the Malaysians were implementing the 10th Malaysia plan. They said they were going to create so many jobs, and they described how those jobs were going to be created. At the end of the day, other consequential jobs were created. They never included that and counted in their plan. Those were additional because, and they then marked, even if they said they were going to create 3,000 jobs and 4,000 jobs were created, but not in the framework that they had agreed, but they were consequential to whatever was happening. They didn't count that as a creation as a result of that. What we saw in the Eurobond was that we realized there was money in the market and Zambia would access that money. Then we rushed, let's go and get that money. And we went and got that money. And I feel very bad up to date to say this, that when you look at that parking lot at the UTH, the one that is upstairs, that was borrowed money. Borrowed money from the Eurobond, commercial. Health, you need money, yes, and they went and started building the parking lot. And even before it went to the story that it was banned, it couldn't. Up to now, that was an investment that we made that will never give us an amount. So if there are any lessons that we have learned, is that we must be able to plan. If there's any lesson from the treasure that we have learned, is that, and this is where we are talking about project reviews and valuation, because we realize that we prepare for the projects, put in the budget, we put the money there, implementation comes, we don't achieve anything because we don't plan for those projects. And obviously, if I said that I'm not allowing this project because it has not been properly planned, and this project is in Katuba constituency where I come from, my young brother, who is the member of parliament for Katuba, will be saying, my brother is fighting me, he doesn't want the project. Not realizing the actual benefit and why we are doing that. So we need this. And this is why at an appropriate time I'll ask the lady probably to discuss this. The lessons from Chile, again, is very clear. Zambians taught the Chileans how to mine. At the level that we were at the time we were teaching the Chileans 720,000 metric tons, that is where we are up to now, struggling around there. From 1968 or thereabout, the Chileans have been moving. Is it that we don't have the ambition? I don't think it is the capacity, because if it was the capacity, the Chileans would not have depended on Zambia. It's just the complexity. We believe when we are there, we have arrived, and no one will touch us, whether we are doing the right thing or we're not doing the right thing. And probably we should find a way of collaborating and making sure that each one of us are doing the right thing. In terms of the PPP projects, again, I will be very honest with you that I coordinated the consultancy and looked at the initial projects that came in as PPP at that time, and looking at the new projects that are coming now as PPP. As an individual, as an expert in this area, I'm seeing a lot of improvement. We can do better, but I'm seeing a lot of improvement. What is even important and encouraging now is that the PPP Act provides, and it was a very huge battle, but the Act now provides that all PPP procurement shall be on a competitive bid, except when it is provided, and the Act provides clear exceptions. If we are protecting a right, someone has got a technology that needs to be protected, that needs to be shared. If it is a government to government interest, and we declare that, everyone knows that we are doing, that PPP will come. The rest shall come on the basis of competition. And when it comes on the basis of competition, the job of the people in the offices is to be able to say, are we getting the return on this investment? Are we looking at this model? I remember again sitting on the committee when we were looking at the Kasumbalesa project as a PPP, and someone was saying, ministry, you are going to share so much money, should we get a return at that level? And I remember telling them, we cannot, and Honorable Magande was our minister then. I refused to sign on that PPP project as an expert, because I was telling them, if I'm 1 meter tall, you tell me that the orange is at 1.2 meters, and that you pluck that orange, I won't reach there. Even if you tell me that you give me 100%, I won't reach there, I'm 1 meter tall. Can we agree where we are, and we can be able to do that? So we have seen, from the legislative point of view, we have seen that there is improvement in the PPP Act. Probably what we need to work on is the guidelines and the regulations to make sure that we close all those loopholes and there is no room for that maneuver. The last one is on the budget. What is wrong with the budget support? I also would wonder, there's nothing wrong with the budget support. We get the money, we make a decision on how we use that money. In fact, the best that we have always been advocating, that money comes into one pot as a budget. The representative of the Zambian people, the members of parliament, make a decision on how we use that money. These are the representative of the Zambian people. It is because of the lacking that we have in budget support that someone comes and says, I doubt if I give you the money in budget support that you are going to use it the right way, and therefore I'll give it to you as a project support so that I can monitor it. Otherwise, all the money that we receive should come in as budget support, and the representative of the Zambian people, the members of parliament, then decide on where we take the project. Because if it comes as project support, sometimes we'll have the project in one area where we don't need those projects. So, obviously, I know the context in which that question was raised. Mode of support of the budget should be budget support. If it comes as a project support, I'm basically coming to you, I've reached an agreement and coming to you as members of parliament that I want to implement this project. It shouldn't be the case. But we have not yet reached there because our systems cannot probably support that. This is why we have got a blend of project and budget support. And in now we are even creating a middle where we are talking about a basket support. Someone is interested in the health sector. Instead of them saying, I'm doing this project in the health, we agree that they put the money in the health sector, and we together identify the project in the health sector, and the money is used in the health sector. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Wamnyima and Honorable Nyambose, Honorable Anakoka, then Honorable Mabumba, so that at least you can proceed.
Thank you, Chair. ST, thank you for your submission. Chair, just to make some remarks, that ST, in my view, 80% of what's in this report should not have come to this committee had the Ministry of Finance interacted properly with the Auditor General. This is a very, very big problem for us as a committee, because I mean, issues of the ministry giving the Auditor General a contract coming to be discussed here. So I think going forward, ST, we would like to implore you to crack the whip in people taking audit seriously. And now coming to my substantive question. What are you doing in normalizing these supplier credit agreements? Because for me, I see something irregular, particularly, for example, the Mikalile supplier credit agreement. A very, very bizarre agreement. No advance payment, 3 years moratorium in terms of beginning to pay, 10 years payment plan, and government is defaulting. I have computers, Chair, in Nalolo, in schools without electricity, supplied by Mikalile. So what as a ministry, what are you really doing to normalize this? Because then we keep on going into credit for supply with all suppliers, and we are accumulating a huge debt mountain. Have you devised any sort of procedure to avoid this kind of reckless borrowing, which is, of course, very historic? Chair, I think.
Thank you. Honorable Nyambose, you can proceed.
Chair, thank you. Part of it has been tackled, but I will just amplify or augment to what my brother from Nalolo has said on the supply credit agreements. And I've seen in the report here on page 3 where they have indicated the measures that they are putting in place. As your ministry, you are putting in place to address this matter. One of them is that loans you have to be guaranteed that supply is done first before signing of the contract. Now, what I can ask is, we have observed, especially for the contract that has mentioned in the Ministry of Education, where there was no needs assessment. Are you putting as a priority, as a very important issue, before goods are supplied or services are sought, that indeed those goods will go into the direction that is well intended in the procedure manual that you are preparing? When do we see the absence of this manual, since you have indicated you are still consulting on this supply credit agreement loans acquisition, which has caused problems for the country? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. ST and your team, thank you for your presentation. Chair, I have one question for the ST. We have seen and heard from several institutions, and they have produced evidence of someone in the Ministry of Finance affirming that government has sourced $100 million, $200 million, $20 million for a particular project. And indeed, the government would go ahead and make contract a particular entity and even pay an advance payment. And soon after paying advance payment, then the funds that were confirmed to have been sourced and secured, again, the Minister of Finance advises the financing agreement or arrangement has been cancelled. And therefore the project is not going ahead. And in the process, the government is exposed to huge financial penalties, not to mention the fact that nothing would have happened anyway, because the funds paid would have been for mobilization, which is not physical, more of desktop arrangement. So, my question is, how does the coordination between the Minister of Finance and the implementing ministries or entities, how is it done? Or what is it that causes this arrangement of funds secured and then all of a sudden, no, it's not sustainable, therefore we are cancelling it? Because that's one of the biggest problems we've had over the last decade or even slightly more. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe I'll allow Honorable Mabumba to proceed and ask, then ST can answer the question.
Thank you, Chair. For me, Chair, just take ST to page 3 with submission on project financing vis-a-vis project appraisals. And I know ST, you mentioned Malaysia, Collective, where they are, because they worked Collective as a people, and they knew what they wanted to achieve. We have got the 8th National Development Plan, and they have stated we are going through the transition. Now, ST, this transition cannot be in a vacuum. So when do we begin to see that these debt financing that we are getting, especially for project financing, the projects are appraised and the information is made public to say, we are getting money, we are putting it into here. And I can give you an example. Not too long ago, our Committee on Planning and Budgeting, we were in Ansanga in Serenji, farm block. An investment, if it is well done, we can create jobs, we can create wealth for this country. Despite that, even when you look at, I think, the borrowing plan for 2022 or 2023, there is money for that project. There are no roads, there is no electricity, there is nothing. So if the project's appraisals are properly done, I'm sure, and married to the borrowing plan, I am sure we wouldn't see what we saw into Nansanga. So my request, Chair, is when do we, yes, we know we are going through the transition, but when do we see the operationalization of your debt office so that they begin to work on these things, so that even when we borrow money, the Zambian people should be able to celebrate, to say, yes, this money has been borrowed, and at the end of the day, these are the following achievements that this particular borrowing is going to achieve. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, ST. You can proceed and answer those 4 questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if you would allow, probably I'll respond in the reverse, so that for those that I still have fresh, I will comprehensively respond. When do we see the operationalization of the debt management office? We are in the process of appointing and having the structure approved by MDD, and our target date is that effective 1st January 2025, the debt management office will become operational. In terms of the current process that we are doing and the law, probably I would ask my colleague to respond to raise immediately after I finish this. Means of finance confirming funds, and then all of a sudden the funds are not available and the project is cancelled. That was a weakness that we saw, and this is why we brought the Debt Management Act to Parliament. Now, it is not a Minister of Finance or Minister of Finance or whoever does that. It will be the Parliament through the annual borrowing plan. If we want to borrow any money, we come to Parliament. Give a justification. What are we going to borrow? Under what terms are we borrowing? For what purpose? And the members of Parliament will to say, do we agree with this purpose? Do we need to borrow this money? Will it give us a return? And therefore, members of Parliament will say yes or no before the Minister of Finance borrows. So it removes that position where a person or an individual in the Ministry of Finance or a group of people in the Ministry of Finance would be able to do that. And if this is done going forward, surely we have seen, and we have seen this before, where yes, there is this money, advance is paid, the project is cancelled, the advance is not accounted for. Again, this is why I'm calling it collective responsibility. Why should we allow someone to do that? This is blatant theft. I'm sorry to say this. This is blatant theft. And it does not exclude the Minister of Finance. And the colleagues in the Ministry of Finance know. I have had discussions with them. We have discussed about this. Especially when we are with the Auditor General and we are talking about this Mikarire debt. We could see there was something wrong from the beginning to the end. And I called the colleagues from Ministry of Education. I said, you are supposed to do a pre-inspection. Did you do a pre-inspection? And the colleague sitting in the Ministry of Education told me, sir, we were taken to the warehouse and we are told, this is the warehouse. These are the goods. Did you check that the goods they were talking about are the goods that we require? He said, no, we are not allowed. And you then signed off and it went to say, sir, you wanted me to lose my job. My children are still young. And obviously, such a person is not protected. Can we protect a person who does that? When I was a consultant chair, a young guy at Procurement was approached by one of the contractors. We wanted this work to be done and we are told the contract is here. And the young guy tells the contractor, sorry sir, this is wrong. This is how it's to be done. He says, oh, this is wrong. What's your name? The young guy mentions his name. He says, I doubt if you have your job by tomorrow. When I was a consultant, and the following day, that young boy lost his job, and there was a replacement. Do you think that replacement would have said no? So, if we want to see this change, let us together protect these officers that are doing the right thing. Chair, the Mikalire contract, as I said, from the beginning to the end, it was a bad contract. Again, as ST, I have been lobbied to pay the Mikalire contract. And I've said I cannot pay something that is not right. That is how. And what we have, the Mikalire contract, is the correct contract sum. What is the correct amount that was delivered? And because it's an external debt, then we apply the restructuring on the correct amount. The way it is, if we are to apply restructuring, chair, the contract amount would have been far lower, and we restructure and we'll be saying Mikalire has given us something when they haven't given us anything. So we have said I've been threatened to be sued. I'm sure that the Attorney General will protect me in court. We should do the right thing. So I don't want to go into details, but we had a meeting where we called the Attorney General, we called the Minister of Education, we called the Auditor General in our office in the Ministry of Finance. And we went through, including the Anti-Corruption Commission. Following that meeting, the Anti-Corruption Commission wrote a letter to me. Don't pay anything until we finish with the investigations. Because everyone realized there was something wrong with that contract. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable colleagues, follow-up questions? Honorable Amnima.
Chair, thank you, ST, for your submission. The biggest problem I have with ST, with your office, and most of these offices that put us in debt, you interrogate contracts which you yourselves as a ministry entered in. That's what I was asking. Do you have a standard? I'll give you an example. ADAS contract, the ministry itself enters the contract. Attorney General approves. Audits come. Now, I won't go into that because it's not part of your submission. Now, we come to the Mikalire contract. You yourselves were approving these contracts. As a procuring entity that procures these contracts with bad terms, years pass, you are not paying, then we begin interrogating. These people who were so negligent not to have pre-inspections, you find that they are still working. And by and large, a bad contract is not only bad for government, it's also bad for the contractor. So government will hold on, no, we are not paying, interest is accruing on debt. You are restructuring it to be my children paying. So ST, what practical measures are you seriously putting to avoid the continuous contraction of bad debt. It's not enough to say that Parliament is now contracting. Yes, we will allow you to contract. We've approved. But when you sign this finance agreement, we are not there. We are not there as parliamentarians. So what are these practical things that do so that the issues that the Auditor General is bringing about here are after the fact? When the Minister of Finance was procuring, it was a very nice contract. Now that there's no money to pay, it's a bad contract. So we want to know, particularly for me, Chair, because you see, it's very painful to see someone who didn't inspect something. I'll give you an example. For this same Mikalia contract, Chair, I don't think those laptops or whatever can be in the same condition to date if you go and inspect them. I was actually shocked to find a computer in Nalolo, Qatar. The whole world no electricity, just shelved. So the SEC go there, they check. So we need to have a stop to bad contractual terms. So for me, I'm interested in hearing what practical steps you're doing. We have the Attorney General here. Now from the financial aspect, because the Attorney General look at the legal issues, the financial aspects, interests, advance payments, payment terms. I submit.
Thank you, Honorable Nyambose.
Short one. My question was, they are consulting and preparing a procedure manual to stop this. In the meantime, we have observed the gap that is there on the supply credit agreements, which was happening. What is currently happening now? What are you doing, ST, in the meantime? And when do we see this manual finalized and put into place to avert this, the Nikalide type of contract? That is what I can say besides what you are saying.
Thank you, honorable colleagues. ST, let me ask one question, and my question, ST, is I think when you are contracting loans or debt on behalf of government, I think the Ministry of Finance came up with an index, should be concessional loans below a certain percentage. We had a submission from the PS budget and economic affairs, the issue pertaining to supplier credit agreement, that when you are acquiring something, they've got different conditionality. On the other aspect, we've got an index on what we want to borrow, to say we cannot borrow more than this because we want to manage our debt portfolio. Now, why don't we come up with a specific benchmark for this supplier credit agreement in terms of first issues of what is contained in there in terms of financing costs, the issues of in an event that we default, what is a standard procedure in terms of calculation of interest? Is it on amortization basis? Is it on LIBOR basis? So that we don't deviate. Today we are doing amortization. Tomorrow we go and get this one. It's on LIBOR. So that we have a consistent way to acquire some of these agreements. And I'm happy. I don't know if your acting director IDM is here, because we've got a lot of questions for that department. So I wanted you to just help us on that aspect. On the other side, we've got a benchmark to say this is our index. But on the credit supply agreement, there's nothing. It's as it were, you can go and get from this one once calculated this way. I think that's a submission we got from your officers. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. In terms of the practical measures, one of the issues that we are doing is to make sure that there is transparency and accountability in the entire process. And this is why, even before the Minister of Finance appends his signature, we come to Parliament for Parliament to make sure that they look at that. And we all agree. And this is why we even have said in the Public Debt Act that we will be publishing on a quarterly basis on the Ministry of Finance website on the debt position for Zambia, so that there is transparency, there is accountability, and if there is anything that is going against our profile, that someone would be able to see it if we were to flag it down. So that is one practical thing that we have brought up. The New Debt Management Act provides that we declare, we bring to Parliament, and that we then follow through this. The second thing that I'll combine with the answer, and I'll ask the director if she will have anything to add, is obviously we then put ourselves the benchmarks, and these should be our benchmarks. It's not someone else to prescribe for us. Our benchmarks. Now we have said we are not going to borrow anything that is not concessional. And we agree on the definition of concessionality. And obviously we have moved from LIBOR, now we are talking about SOFR plus what would be that concessionality would be. And that any borrowing, it doesn't matter whether it is a supplier credit, whether it is a budget support or a financing support, any loan that we are going to sign, we are going to define and say, what can we get as at now? And it won't be standard. For now, because of the debt challenges we have agreed only that which is concessional. And we have agreed on the concessionality. And we also put in the budget, in the medium term, we put how much of that are we going to borrow, and therefore project what would be the debt beyond that. And anything that comes, therefore, it doesn't fit in there. Now, probably another thing I'll be discussing with my colleagues, probably another thing that we can be able to do as we are preparing either a cost circular for the budget, or as we are preparing the medium-term expenditure framework, probably we will also be given the indicative terms of the loans that we would be able to accept during that period, so that it is again becomes clear. But I will be consulting with the colleagues to make sure that everything is done in accordance with the law. In terms of these guidelines that we are talking about, when do we finalize them? First and foremost, under the current arrangement, obviously we have the Mikalire case that happened. We can't reverse that it happened. We can only correct the situation. But under the current arrangement, even before those final guidelines come out, that such a contract cannot be signed. Under the current arrangement, such a contract cannot be signed. And we are very, very hopeful that under the current arrangement, the officer that will refuse to execute that contract because he's outside the boundaries shall not be fired. We will protect that officer. And we will take responsibility for giving the officer that power. But should the officer decide to do otherwise, that will be in the forefront of the one to say, let this officer be fired. Can we fire those officers that were asked to sign those contracts? Some of them will tell you that at the time some of those contracts were being signed, some of the officers would go into hiding. They know it's a bad contract, but they will receive instruction from their boss, sign this contract. So what do? The best thing is fake that you are sick, so that your signature is not there. And then the next officer who is found, they are taken and say sign. And obviously, if I go to the PS and say, PS, we have negotiated this, sign this contract, the PS will take it, I'm doing it in good faith. And the PS will sign this contract. And unfortunately, law is by evidence and not facts. Unfortunately, some of the innocent officers, some of them in the Ministry of Finance, innocent, and I can even follow the file, that this officer was put in this position at this particular time in order to execute this. Innocent. Unfortunately, when the law reaches to them, they will go to jail. It's unfortunate. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Is the director supplementing on the ST?
Director supplement, and then you can come on the project appraisal. Director.
Thank you.
Thank you, ST. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, honorable members. Not to take away from what ST has submitted and what my PS has been submitting throughout her appearance to PAC. I've taken note of the submission from the honorable members that probably when we bring the annual borrowing plan to Parliament and approval is given at that high level, obviously the operational issues remain with the Ministry of Finance, in particular the Debt Management Department. So it's our responsibility to ensure that we contract the debt on the best terms to minimize. So what we do is we have certain provisions in the new Public Debt Management Act. Yes, we recognize that in the past there were all these gaps that were, as well as the legal framework. So under the Public Debt Management Act, some of these things have been sorted out. For instance, I'll give an example of the medium-term debt management strategy, which is now in the law. So the Ministry of Finance through the IDM department is mandated to formulate or to develop the medium-term debt management strategy. We look at the portfolio of the debt we have, the current portfolio, and make a plan of where we want to be in terms of what will inform our borrowing. So all those are technical issues that the debt managers have to involve themselves in. Once those processes are done, the information that comes out of such processes are what informs how the debt managers are going to negotiate, because there's a negotiating loan. Processes now are provided for a new Public Debt Management Act, and it's I think the commitment from the Ministry of Finance and National Planning, as well as the Debt Management Office, to ensure that those processes are followed through. The other issue that I wanted to comment on, which has been highlighted, is the procedures manual. So the procedures manual, again, as highlighted in ST submission on page 3, this one now will guide the day-to-day operations of the debt management. So when it comes to the different forms of debt contracts that we have, for example, supplier credits, we have the ECAs, the export credit loan agreements. These obviously have different features. So what the procedures manual will do is that any debt manager that is in IDM at any particular point, whether they are part of the negotiating team, whether they are part of the contracting team, they're in the front office, middle office, or back office, there will now be a document that will guide what the responsibility of each officer is, depending on which section of the DMO that they belong to. So this procedures manual actually is very important to guide the day-to-day operations of debt management, the debt managers in the debt management office. So that is why it's important. And as ST mentioned, the finalization of the procedures manual will actually be done almost at the same time that the DMO is coming into place. So I just wanted to submit that most of these are already being done, especially looking at where we are coming from. There's a lot that is being done when it comes to debt management reforms, and that is why we have the new law that created the DMO, as well as all these other processes that will strengthen debt management in Zambia. Thank you.
Thank you. The other director can make a submission, then honorable colleagues will come with clarifications.
Thank you, Chair. The project appraisal, I think, is guided by the National Planning and Budgeting Act. I think the Section 24 emphasizes that all major projects should be appraised before they are included in the MTEF annual budget even in the borrowing plan. So as a department, as under the Ministry of Finance, we are the ones that are assessing these projects that are coming. We liaise with the various ministries. As the ST mentioned, it's in transition. The act was done in 2020, and this process has is in its infancy. And so far, from 2022, we did work with about 20 ministries to look at the projects that they were intending to be financed through the various sources of financing, which includes the budget, loan financing, even PPPs. We published the public investment plan, which is available on the website on the Ministry of Finance, and those are the projects that were appraised. Then in 2024 we did the same, collaborated with the MPSAs, and we did assess and appraise the projects. We had quite a number of projects that came from about 20 institutions, I think close to 200 projects, and from those 200 only a few were able to fit into the current budget. So we have over 200, and part of those we need to further develop those projects. I think this is the issue that the ST has raised, that initially we'll just have the money given to us and start thinking of what projects, and midway the projects are not effectively implemented or they are stalled. So this process, I think, is helping in terms of curtailing implementing projects that are not feasible or technically feasible, as well as reducing in terms of expenditure wastage on projects that are not finalized. So in terms of the project appraisal, it's in place, and the ministry is running with the process of appraising through the Public Investment Department, of course guided by the National Planning and Budgeting Act. I submit, Chair.
Thank you for the submission. Before Honorable Kafwaya comes in, ST, I think we've heard the submission from your officers. The most important aspect, especially for debt management, also ST, from our belief is that first there should be very high collaboration measures between the ministries and the Ministry of Finance, which we hope in our thinking should have been done. But as we sit from this side, ST, I think we've seen there's a gap, because even if we asked your IDM department to give us the status on some of these loans sitting on these ministries, I think we cannot have the actual figure. This coming from, I think, what has emanated from the Auditor General's report. So how are you ensuring that you enhance now these collaborations with yourselves and these ministries? Because ST, if you go to the Ministry of Education, for example, under the same supplier credit agreement, we don't even know how much we owe the supplier, because we have issues of delivering equipment with wrong specification. These are some of the things we need to say, okay, these have been taken off. This, with what has been delivered, this is the actual position. Because what we're grappling with, even in this meeting, is what is the actual indebtedness of government to this supplier. We are not sure. So then how do we pay? Because we are not sure. I think ST also has submitted that investigative wings have said, no, until we finish this, don't pay. But we don't even know what actually we owe, because as we speak, there are disputes. Wrong specifications delivered, not delivered. Some yes have been delivered under both home affairs and education. So it is imperative that some of these your departments who are conferred with these important responsibilities, they are up to speed, so that even as we request and say, can we have a position on this, we know the actual position. Then even as we make recommendations as a committee, we are on firm ground, because we can make recommendations, but we don't know the actual reconciled a figure where we can say, yes, government owes this because all these issues emanating from the same supply. So I want the director IDM to tell us how you are going to ensure that these collaborations are done, and you come, even as you advise either the ST or the government, that this is our actual indebtedness from your department of your debt management department, that yes, these are the actual figures we're talking about. I think that's what I wanted to ask ST. Honorable Kafwa, you can proceed.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chair. As I listened to part of the submission from the Secretary to Treasury, I heard him say that, give an example of the Mikarile contracts, and he said they have happened. There's nothing we can do, but we can just correct them. And from that I sense there must be problems that have been observed from those contracts. I would like to find out from the ST what after having studied the contracts, what the biggest weaknesses are in those contracts, and who is to blame. Is it Mikarile who is to blame, or it is government which must be blamed? And hopefully just to get the recommendation. Because I've heard complaints that there are people who are owed by government with very bad terms, and those people are paid. You know, those people are honored, really. The obligations are honored. But for this particular creditor who gave, from what I hear, a grace period of 3 years, and so on, government has been defaulting. So I keep wondering as to whether these weaknesses observed in the contracts are the reason for government defaulting, or there are other reasons. Just to get clearance or clarity from the ST. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, ST. You have that question, then mine goes to the director IDM. Thank you, ST. You can proceed.
Thank you very much. Who is to blame? Probably we can apportion blame. First and foremost, and this is the reason where we couldn't process the payment. First and foremost, the law is very clear. The goods must have been received, certified that the goods have been received, accepted, on the basis of which then a payment request is made. The first time that Mikarile came to see me and asked for the payment, I asked of the goods received. And the Ministry of Education told me they didn't have any knowledge of how much goods were delivered where. Because if they had that and they got the goods received notes, probably the issue of specification would not be an issue to me, it would be for the experts. For me, were the goods delivered, yes. Were they the standards agreed and everything, yes, and I would have paid. But the question then came, where were these goods certified? Or were there any goods received notes? And even if today the goods received notes were to come to me and said the goods were received, the argument will be different. And then we are told, no, these goods were delivered to the different localities. Now, if no one certified the receipt of those goods in those localities, how do I know that the goods were received? That is point number one. Point number two, ordinarily such a procurement was that when the goods are there, you are going to say what goods are there, there's pre-inspections, everyone brings them. Up to now, the information that I have, Mikarile says the pre-inspections were there. The Minister of Education, and I called an officer from the Minister of Education who was there to say, if there are pre-inspections, can I have a report And this is the officer who told me by word of mouth that actually we were taken to the warehouse. He accepted. But at the warehouse, we are not allowed to open any of the containers. We were just told, this is the warehouse and these are the goods in the containers. Because we were asking, were they the right quality? Because that concern came. And the question that comes to me, and again to say, who do we apportion this blame to? If in his constituency, in the rural area where there is no electricity, a laptop was taken there, does it mean it was negligence of the Ministry of Education to have agreed that a laptop be supplied to a school where there is no electricity? Or it was a negligence from the Ministry of Education not to have stopped that supply of a laptop? Or does it mean that Mikalire decided to supply even without agreeing with the Ministry of Education on where they're going to supply those laptops? There are a lot of those gaps, but that is not my responsibility. My responsibility is to ensure prudent public financial management. And all I'm saying is, if you give me those responses and it shows that we received these goods, they were of the quality that we wanted and we received them, then the rest of the issues or the loss, we can cut it. But we can then probably be able to do that. But in the discussion we had, where we now brought the Anti-Corruption Commission in that meeting with the Auditor General, that's when the Anti-Corruption Commission wrote to me to say they have developed interest in that, and they instructed me not to pay until they do their process. Now, it becomes a different matter altogether because it is in a different hands, and obviously my hands are tight. I'm waiting for that. On the issue, I'll ask the director to make some additions. But where are we? Again, this is one of the bigger challenges that I've seen, Chair, that even the controlling officers and all those ministries, when they come here, they will give the report different from what they are doing on the ground or the relationship we have on the ground, because they want to claim innocence. Before we started debt restructuring, my colleagues in the investment and debt management called each one of the institutions. What are the loans you have? What is the status of these loans? What do we do with these loans? I personally, at Sandy's creation, chaired meetings with these institutions and their suppliers or their contractors, where we agreed, contractor A, we owe you so much. You need to go into the reconciliation because we didn't have the reconciled numbers. But from now onwards, we cut this loan and we gave responsibility to one another to do that work. And I will tell you again, frankly speaking, we could even see resistance from some of the institutions. We could even see lobbying from some of the institutions. Yeah, this you need to restructure, but you know ours is very important, don't restructure. We are helping an institution, you have over-borrowed, you're over-indebted. There is a provision in the contract that says you will be paid penalties. I, as Secretary to the Treasury, sit with those guys and say, instead of us charging penalties, let us agree, we resolve this, so that is a win-win case. The contractor agrees and says, I'm going to consult with my employer so that we agree with you, ST, we can agree and move forward. An officer comes to lobby and say, please don't cancel the contract. The truth of the matter is we sat with everyone, agreed on how we are going to treat each one of those, and agreed on them to do the reconciliation. But let me ask her to add on.
You can proceed.
Thank you, ST, and thank you, Chair. So in addition to what ST has mentioned, I think the biggest question here, as you highlighted, Chair, is we need to establish how much we owe. And that is centered around some of these contracts that we've had. Now, just to go back to what my colleagues, including my peers, submitted over the weeks, with supplier credits, it's a bit complicated because the supplier himself is the one that advances the line of credit. So from our point of, or from our end of the issue as Ministry of Finance, we look at the financing facility. So in terms of establishing what exactly are we indebted to, that is determined or that is advised by what we get from our colleagues, the line ministries, as drawdowns on that facility in terms of the goods that have been supplied. So the reconciliations, because we have a debt database, and we need to make sure that that database is credible. Because if our external debt database is not credible, we have no basis actually to even undertake processes that we are doing now, like the restructuring, because that will just jeopardize the whole process. So we have a credible debt database where reconciliations are done on a regular basis with creditors. So in this particular case, for the supplier credit, reconciliations were done with the supplier in terms of the financing agreement. In terms of the deliveries, we have to rely on the implementing ministry to confirm whether they received amounts to the tune of what we have on our database. But of course, we take note that the committee had submitted that Ministry of Finance has to strengthen their oversight on such kind of arrangements, because obviously, as you are discussing with the creditor, in this case the supplier, on how much the supplier has delivered, there should be some parallel discussions with the implementing ministries so that you are on the same page. That was done post the acknowledgement of the debt. However, we collaborated with the line ministries to say, look, we are going into this debt restructuring. We need to know, did this supplier supply goods worth this much? Because there's no way we can engage any creditor if we don't know how much we owe them. What we inform what we owe them is what they have delivered. On the other loans and other arrangements, we normally don't have such a problem. Why? Because as they're implementing this project, where we have the contractor separated from the financier, the financier signs an agreement with Ministry of Finance, the monies are coming through, IDM or the debt management department now focuses on the financing agreement. The disbursements will generate the interest payments. The interest payments will generate a debt payment profile. The amortization shows the principal, the interest amounts, the date on which they are paid. The system will tell you exactly when you pay debt service. The accounting or the back office of the IDM department ensures that they pay those amounts on time. And because if they don't do that, that would be a default. So the system works like that. And then on the implementation side, if it's a road project, the contractor will implement that road project, submit IPCs to the line ministry, RDA. RDA brings those IPCs, the signatories within the Ministry of Finance, to say, look, this contractor has done so much works on this road. This is how much those works are costed. What we do, we get that information, we record it in the system as a drawdown. So that is very straightforward. But where we had such a situation where the supplier and the contractor are the same individual, and then the goods delivered, in this particular case, the way the contract was structured, the line ministry has already admitted that there was no needs assessment, and then in some cases no delivery notes were signed off by officers from that line ministry. It becomes very difficult for the Ministry of Finance to actually know the true indebtedness, because we don't know whether some of the goods were delivered, at what value they were delivered. So even the value for money there has to be established before we can really confirm the true indebtedness of the country in that regard. So, Chair, I just wanted to mention that going forward, we've realized these challenges that we are facing, especially on certain forms of financing, like supplier credits. And that is why we are recommending, if you look at page 3 of the ST submission, we are recommending that some of these procedures need to be institutionalized, so that any officer that is dealing, whether it's in the back office, the front office, the middle office of the debt management office, any officer that knows that, okay, we are contracting this kind of credit facility. How should we start? Where does it start from? Who does what? So along the process, all the different sections of the DMO will have a role to play to ensure that all these loopholes that we are seeing on certain financing arrangements like supplier credits are really sealed, so that we don't have such kind of queries coming up in future. I submit, Chair.
Thank you for your submission, Honorable Mnyima.
Chair, thank you very much. ST and team, I think we need your help to have closure, particularly on this Mikalile issue, because it was singled out in the audit. Now, here are the concerns that I have. The Auditor General has no mandate to audit a private person. They audit government. So when this audit was being undertaken, I think the Ministry of Finance should have engaged the supplier, because the supplier came here with good received notes to this committee. And the client ministries have not been helpful either, particularly the Ministry of Education, who their submission, if contract is, the Auditor General did their audit, only to come and see the contract here at this committee, that there was a contract between education. So part of the biggest problems that I have is that in 2021 ST, the Public Accounts Committee deliberated on this issue, particularly with Home Affairs, recommendations given, the report was taken to the floor of our House, and we adopted it. If this debt is not closed, interest is accruing. What challenges are we having to know? Because Zambia, I mean, the whole country, we are still trying to discuss. 3 years, we don't know whether the laptop arrived or not. I mean, we need to close this, ST. What challenges are you having, really, in closing this with the line ministry, particularly the Ministry of Education, who have only known now that they had the contract? They've only known now. The PS sat there, and I was seated, saying, if there's a contract, if there's a contract. That was the submission. And so, considering that debt servicing that is delayed can only accrue, there is nothing that is happening apart from accruing interest on the principal amount. So for closure, for closure of this, what are the main challenges that you're having in closing this? Asabiche.
Thank you. ST, just to amplify on Honorable Mnyma's question, I think even yesterday when we were at the Ministry of Home Affairs, the Chief Quartermaster from Police, what was coming through our minds is that their submission was there's a balance to supply of $1.9 million, which they want to vary. I think Honorable was just reminded, and we're asking that we are having these issues and still grappling with issues of fiscal space. Why don't we have a cutoff and say whatever we have not supplied? Because according to submission of your director is that is what interest is accrued on what is supplied, and also debt is recognized on what is supplied. So why don't we have a closure? Instead of saying, no, we want to vary this 1.9, it should still bring, let's close off and say, this is how much we owe. Now let's now proceed to have negotiations on how we are going to restructure. Let's correct it. There are a lot of, I think, issues emanating to these contracts. So that we can close them. We go to Ministry of Education, the same. What has not been supplied, take off. Defective, take off. What if you take off? And now sit down and say, this is the actual indebtedness. That's what we're asking, and say, we are closing it off from here. Even when you negotiate, this is the interest, this we don't accept, that we don't accept, this we don't accept. Then we sit down with the supplier and have a reconciliation, as it were. Then we close off and move forward and do your restructuring and agree, and that now your processes. I think that's what we are asking as a committee, because if there is no legal implication to say we can cut off here and close off, because I think we cannot be cited for what we've not received. I think that's I just wanted to amplify also Honorable Mnyma's question. You can proceed, Steve.
So thank you, Chair. I think all I can say, Chair, is that the Mikarire debt is part of the external debt that is going under this restructuring under the G20 common framework. And obviously there are rules that govern that process. So may I beg that let us not want to address this outside. Let us leave it so that the Treasury will address it within the common framework. I also just want to say this, that the quartermaster you are talking about was in the meeting we had. And I remember I was very annoyed with him. We are resolving this issue and we have got these challenges and exactly your recommendation. And now they are coming behind to try and make sure that they convince you so that you can come and talk to me and I can be able to say, no, let's give them. And I asked him the question in that meeting, what is your interest? And I told him, I still remember vividly that there are 20 million Zambians that are looking for a job. If you cannot do it, we can find another person to do that job. His job is to procure. If there is this thing, I don't think he's got the capacity, the experience, or the technical know-how on how to handle this. The best he can do is hand over to the people that will be able to manage that. And he goes ahead and start looking for food for the police officers. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Colleagues, any other issues to address with the ST? I see no issues. Honorable Kampamba, do you have any issue? Honorable Anakoka? Honorable Kafwaya? Okay. My right?
Chair, I think just sufficient to say that we thank you, ST, but we are still laboring to deliberate on the same matter over and over. Like for us and the chairman who are from public accounts, we must deliberate again. So I think audits must have, when the Auditor General keeps querying, it's because the ministries are not closing the matter. So I think that we implore you strongly to have closure on this issue. We should not be sitting next year audit again in Mikarire contract. I think, Chair, that is a waste of public resources to deliberate on an issue that is not closing. I submit you.
Thank you. Thank you, honorable colleagues. Auditor General, anything?
Chair, I just want to thank the ST because I think that he has cleared some of the issues which we discussed earlier. It is clear, I think, from the ST's submission that engagements were there with the Minister of Finance, and I thank him for clearing that. And I do hope that going forward, Chair, we are not going to see what we are seeing in this report, because public funds we are talking about. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Auditor General. ST, let me take this opportunity to thank you most sincerely with your team. ST, I've seen some of your submissions. I had breaked off a bit, and I think all in all, I think as a committee, and I think moving forward as a nation, what we want to see is a robust system on how we can manage our public financial resources for the 20 million plus Zambian people. I think that's why we're here. There are a lot of issues which were queried in the Auditor General's report: delay in distribution of acquired loans, on-lent loans to some of these quasi-government institutions, and also I think we should also implore IDC to ensure that they come up with a strategic plan on how they can manage some of these state-owned enterprises to ensure that they can give us a much-needed dividends to the Treasury, so that the pressure to the Treasury can also be reduced through those avenues, because we've gone on to give funds to these institutions, and in the end, we are converting them into equity. But our role is for them to operate as business units which are profitable, as it were, to help us. There's the issue of debt. I think we cannot overemphasize how we need to be on top of things and ensure that we know our indebtedness as a country, even as we acquire new loans, and also we have a common framework, like you've said, in terms of how we acquire certain loans, being it suppliers credit agreement, so that we are in the clear even as members of parliament. Not today we have this suppliers credit agreement with different terms, this one deviating from what benchmarks we've put as a country to ensure that we manage our resources even as we acquire debt, as it were. ST also, there's a very, very important issue which was raised by Honorable Wamnyima, the collaborations during audit between the Office of the Auditor General and not only the Ministry of Finance, many of your ministries. I think there's that gap where people have a laissez-faire attitude towards audit. Where now it's escalated into the queries into the Auditor General's report, they are running to the committees to come and bring evidence, piles of boxes, which they didn't provide to the Office of the Auditor General. And from time to time, we've told them, we are not auditors. The auditor himself is where you need to provide. And some, they've come also to wanting to also withdraw even their submissions to the management letter. Your ministry as well, wanting to withdraw, and now interest that we are that we do. We can talk to each other and come up with a position which is speaking to all of us. Lastly, ST, I think it's in line that we reconcile all these matters. You've guided us with your common framework, the G20, where now all these things we can have a closure and say this is where as a government to ensure that you people are conferred with this very most important duty to tell us, to help us understand some of these issues pertaining to acquisition of loans, management of public resources, as it were, and budget, which comes into budget law. I think those are some of the things we labored with your PS. We advise your PSs and other permanent secretaries. So, ST, we thank you for your submissions and the measures you are taking as government, but we still implore you that we can do much more. And we are here to support you, to ensure that even in gaps with certain laws which are not extinguishing some of these factors, we are there to lobby on behalf of yourselves and ensure that we can have a win-win situation, because what affects you also affects us as members of parliament. So we are very, very grateful, and we can only wish you well as you proceed to go back to your offices. We thank you most sincerely. Auditor General, we are grateful for your technical support to this committee and your unwavering support to this committee. ST, let me take this opportunity now to lift the immunity conferred before you and your team that is being lifted, and have a good afternoon. Thank you so much.
To do it all again. Phil Foden is having the season of his life. Brilliant! Just brilliant! That is quite something!
Get all your football needs with DSTV for Business. Visit dstv.com/business and find the package that suits your business. They'll love it here.
Ubebe balupawanda atapenkondo elo ya tampa.
Mwene mulidi kumokole wapa.
Mwelisa. Sushide wana.
Yonse masoka yochiti nukuza wewe muka.
Vyose tibinjizwe mwambo witu ngwa kusuzula. Arikut.
Bye. Nafichitika? Atisiya. Sharaf kanomba inempi. Inedine detective Nakena.
This is the beginning of the end of the Sinkulos. Na alaba pwa.
My name is Honorable Kampamba Mlenga. I'm Member of Parliament for the good people of Kalulushi. I am a mother of 3 wonderful boys. I'm happily married. I hail from the Copper Belt, and this is my second time returning to Parliament. My constituency is more of a peri-urban. Initially, from history, its inception, it's a mining township. So there's the Chambishi part, there's the Kalulushi part, and there's the Chivuluma, and also the rural part. That's where you go into Chati, Chankalamo, which is now Lunga, Ichimpe, etc., etc. So my constituency, the Chambishi part, that's the industrial site. We are one of the few constituencies privileged to have the multi-facility economic zone, and this is where our mines are based. For example, I'll give CCS, NFCA, Sinometals, etc., etc., and we have a few smelting companies. And then one of the other economic activity that we have in Kalulushi is farming, and also we do produce a lot of timber. We have a lot of plantations. And the overview is that we're still a developing constituency. A lot has to be done, but through the years we've seen the development of bituminous roads. We've seen we only had 3 clinics. Now we have a general hospital. We also have another hospital that was built by government in Chambishi, and we have clinics dotted almost every ward in my constituency. We have also seen the involvement of our constituency in terms of street lighting. We are getting there. We are slowly evolving in terms of development. My plan is to continuously, through government, bring development, and I must make mention that most of the development that we see in our constituency, for example, extension of schools, rehabilitation of schools and clinics, etc., boreholes, have also been engineered through our cooperating partners. So for a very long time, I must mention I was district commissioner at one time, so we did have a good working relationship with our cooperating partners who have forever been on board. So we do get support from government, and also we do get support from our cooperating partners. And as a returning member of parliament is obviously to see that Kalulushi is growing Every year we are getting numbers, we are having new bonds, and obviously we are having people now moving into Kalulushi because of the NAPSA housing complex, and also because through council, the local authority, there's also been plots being allocated. So we need to develop. There are a lot of other places that need development, for example, good road network, water and sanitation, electricity, etc., etc. So as Member of Parliament, through the Constituency Development Fund, we are progressing in terms of the requirements, and it's good that this development is coming right from the grassroots. And of course, with the minimal funds, we are only able to pick as many as we can. So economically, I think we are doing well. My last word to the people of Kalulushi is to sincerely thank them for the support that they've rendered to me throughout the years. I am here at Parliament because of the support that you've given. Everything that I am, where I stand today, is because of you, the good people of Kalulushi. And for me, I'm a Member of Parliament regardless of any political party. And this is our home, this is my message to the people. This is who we are. We're from Kalulushi, this is where we're based, this is where we'll die. So let's come on board and give each other ideas and make sure that we develop Kalulushi. We are also calling upon our cooperating partners, thanking them sincerely for the work that they have done, and just to say it's the first time that Kalulushi has a returning Member of Parliament, so I do not take that lightly, and I want to just say thank you, and obviously thank to the clergy who have also been very, very supportive in terms of prayer, in terms of wisdom. I want to also sincerely thank them, the bus drivers, the taxi drivers, the farmers, my supporters, my non-supporters. All of you build this character in me, and I want to promise you that we shall forever endeavor to fill up the gaps where the gaps need to be filled up.
Mufumbe district is situated in the central part of northwestern province of Zambia. The district is located about 800 plus kilometers away from the capital city of Zambia, Lusaka. Mufumbe Parliamentary Constituency, established in 1983, consists of 18 wards which are very active in decision processes and development. Like other constituencies across the country, Mufumbe district has not been left behind in the implementation of CDF. To foster this development in the constituency, 4 new projects funded under the 2022 CDF allocation were commissioned at a total cost of 2,572,596 kwacha. Among the projects that were commissioned by Mufumbe lawmaker Mr. Elliot Kamondo is a 1x2 classroom block and a VIP toilet at Ndunga Primary School in Chimpandanga Ward, a 1x2 classroom block and a VIP toilet at Lumwe East Primary School in Kashima Ward. A 1x2 classroom block and desks were allocated at Kikonge Day Secondary School in Kikonge Ward. A 1x3 classroom block, a VIP toilet and a borehole were also commissioned at Katoka Mema Primary School in Munyambala Ward. Speaking during the commissioning of a 1x3 classroom block at Ndunga School in Chimpandanga Ward, Mr. Kamondo MP said that the increment is aimed at taking development to the people.
I want to thank the Republican President that because of the CDF money which they gave us, today we are able to come here. If there was no CDF, I was not going to come for this meeting. I want to take you back. This is the school which you had. Now from this one to that one, the CDF is a game changer. Because of CDF, as members of Parliament, we are able, through the council, to do this job. This is not the only thing that the president has done.
Mufumbwe Town Council Secretary Mr. Robbie Chitambo said that through the 2022 enhanced CDF allocation of 697,485 kwacha, the commissioning of the school aligns with President Hakainde Hichilema's directive, which has come to fulfillment to the people of Mufumbwe in Chimpandanga Ward.
On top of what we are seeing or what we are commissioning today, the school has also been given 75 desks following the directive of His Excellency the President Hakainde Hichilema that no pupil should sit on the floor. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a school which is in Chimpandanga Ward. It's about 450 kilometers from the CBD. So that tells a story that the new Dawn government is very determined and committed to ensure that no one is left behind. Irrespective of the distances, as we speak today, there are a lot of projects in Mufumbwe, not only here but across